Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in part 19 of What If Sonic and his friends were in Remnant. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. No way back. Maria Calavera was an individual who would stand out rather easily if one got a good enough look at her. A short elderly woman was not exactly an uncommon sight on Mistral. Though her prosthetic eyes were a big standout, as was her cane that had a skull at the top. And yet, she had just walked into the bar as if it were a typical Tuesday, and none of the patrons really seemed to be interested, all of them just drinking and laughing themselves silly with half of the people in the tavern being drunk already. The old lady sat at the bar as the man who ran it took notice of her. "Ah, Maria, looking for another prune juice?" "Ha, ha," Maria said sarcastically. "Just cranberry juice. You could just go to the store and get that yourself," the bartender said as he went to retrieve said drink. "Don't need to come to a bar. Ah, and let a little old thing like me be lonely." Maria smirked. "If I'm gonna die, might as well be with friends." The bartender smirked. "You'll outlive us all. You're too stubborn to kick the bucket," he said as he handed her a glass of the juice, which Maria accepted with a smile. But as she took a sip, an awful stench got her attention. Looking a couple seats over on her right, Maria saw a man with shaggy black hair laying face first on the bar, several shot glasses and beer bottles scattered all across his body. At first glance, it almost seemed like the man was dead, but she knew he was alive. "What's his deal? Haven't seen him around these parts," Maria asked the barkeep. "No clue. Just showed up, demanded a drink, and 12 more after that. Been here the past couple of days and still hasn't paid his bill. The only time where he doesn't drink is when he goes to the can. But based on that weapon he's got on his back," he pointed to the sword attached to his back. "Probably a pro-huntsman that can't get out of the city cause of the council's order. Those damn pricks are gonna be the death of all of us, let me tell ya." Maria scoffed in silent agreement. Despite Mistral's council seemingly being elected fairly, everyone who kept their ear to the ground knew that Miss Malachite more or less ran the whole thing, with the other two council members being in her pocket. She'd honestly cut that fat pig to pieces herself if she could, but she gave up being a huntress the moment she lost her eyes. And she wasn't exactly eager to get back into the fight. "Yo, barkeep," a gruff voice spoke up as two more huntsmen walked into the bar. One was a tall, broad man with white skin, yellow eyes, and wavy brown hair, who wore a dark purple jacket with silver buttons over a black shirt and light gray pants, and he carried a spiked club over his shoulder. The other was a tall, muscular man with lightly tanned skin, blue eyes, and long brown hair tied in a bun and a slight goatee on his chin. His attire consisted of a beige shirt, a blue and yellow sleeveless tailcoat, and black fingerless gloves with leather paddings on his arms and gray pants. Dudley. Let me guess, the usual pair of beers?" the bartender asked in a neutral manner. "Ah, you do love us." D smirked as the barkeep went to retrieve his beers. Maria then turned to a small television on a barrel at the back of the bar where a live news broadcast was being seen, one hosted by Lisa Lavender. It has been well over a week, almost 2, since the fateful night that had taken place here at Vale. 2 weeks since Beacon Academy was attacked by an unknown invader. 2 weeks since the assault of the largest wave of Grimm in the history of the Kingdom of Vale, perhaps all of Remnant since the Great War. 2 weeks since a mysterious entity clad in golden light had not only repelled the attack but also wiped all the Grimm from the kingdom entirely. All local huntsmen and law enforcements have confirmed that the Grimm in the Kingdom of Vale, and even beyond its borders, have been wiped away, making the eastern region of the Sanus continent the very first true Grimm-free territory, as impossible as it is to believe. We've tried repeatedly to reach out to the huntsmen and staff of Beacon Academy, but now acting headmistress Goodwitch has made no comment on the Golden Hero phenomena that has taken all of Remnant by storm. Golden Hero, huh? Maria muttered. She had too seen the broadcast of that night when Beacon Academy was attacked. She honestly felt like her heart was about to stop when she saw the gold entity appear on screen. She had heard all kinds of news reports reaching out to Mistral and all seemed to confirm that the Grimm in Vale were gone. Honestly, she almost didn't believe it and considered going to Vale to see herself. Spending her last days in a Grimm-less paradise seemed like a good idea. What a load of bull. Dee snorted while the man with black hair, who had been lying face first on the bar, twitched. Yeah, all probably just a bunch of White Fang propaganda. Dudley added. Everyone knows those animals were the ones who tried to destroy Beacon. Oh, and why would the White Fang go to such lengths? Maria swiveled around on her chair to face the two huntsmen. Them attacking Beacon is one thing, but making up the idea of a savior fighting them off. Duh, they want us thinking that it's some kind of animal god coming to save the faunus. D. That literally makes no sense. Maria said bluntly. Are you two the types who get smarter when they drink and are stupid when they're sober? She cracked. Oh, you old bat. Dudley looked ready to fight her. Excuse me. Turning to the sound of a rather soft voice, most of the people looked to see a group of new individuals enter the bar. And they were not like any people they'd seen come here. The one who spoke was a young rabbit girl with cream-colored fur with cinnamon brown eyes. She wore a simple vermilion dress with a white collar and a light blue cravat, white gloves, white socks, and vermilion and yellow shoes. She also seemed to have a small, blue-skinned creature floating next to her that had a red bow tie around its neck. Right behind the girl was a large, anthropomorphic cat, with black eyes and yellow sclera, violet fur and darker stripes running his arms and tail. He had a white furred underbelly, a rather big belly at that, and long ears. His attire consisted of tan gloves, silver buckles, and a brown blet with a gold buckle. And the last individual stood out the most compared to them. It was a robot. A black humanoid robot with yellow accents. Its joints were black, its limbs were dark gray with thick armor around its forearms and upper legs that were also black with yellow fin-like blades acting as kneecaps and shoulder covers. It had 3 gray dots on his chest. It also had a spherical head with a gray mouth plate, blue eyes with red rims, gray caps resembling ears on the side, and a curved yellow horn with points sticking out from the sides, and a blue eye in the center of its foreheads. Ah, and what's a cute little thing like you doing here? Maria asked as she went up to the little girl with her companions. One look at them and she knew right away that they weren't faunus, but something else. Though someone here could easily mistake them as such. And given how tensions with the faunus were high right now, a fight could easily break out, so she should at least get them out of here before any trouble could start. We're kinda lost right now, and we're trying to find out where we are. My name is Cream, and this is my friend Cheese. The little rabbit girl named Cream gestured to the blue creature next to her. Chow chow. The creature chippered almost like a bird. And these are my other friends. Big and General. Cream gestured to the large cat and robot respectively. Hi there. The big cat greeted. Greetings. The robot also said. Nice to meet you all, my name is Maria. Maybe I can help you. The old lady offered. Oh, that would be very nice. Thank you, Miss Maria. Cream smiled. Hey, what are you animals doing here? This place is for humans only. Dudley stated as he and Dee walked forward, prompting Maria to stand in between them. That's quite enough, you two. The old woman told them. They're just looking for directions. Well, tell them to look elsewhere. This place isn't serving faunus trash. Dee stated. What's a faunus? Big asked. Oh, don't get smart with us, big boy. Dudley warned Big, only for General to quickly appear in front of him directly. I would advise you to stand down. If you show any hostility towards Cream, I will be forced to disarm you. Painfully. General warned. And what are you supposed to be? Some fancy robot from Atlas. Dee poked fun. It's not nice to tease my friends. Big said as he looked ready to defend his friends as well. Cream did shrink a bit under the growing tension in the bar, with Cheese sticking close by her. But once she looked past the two men towards the television, she saw the ongoing news broadcast of the Golden Hero's recent exploits over Beacon, including the recorded footage of said Golden Hero fighting back against the Grim. And she recognized him right away. It's Mr. Sonic, Cream said with a happy smile. Chow chow. Cheese was just as excited. Excuse me. Maria looked to the girl in confusion, while the black-haired man at the bar perked up slightly at the mention of that name. He's my friend. Mr. Sonic's always running around, going on amazing adventures, saving the day and fighting bad guys. Cream went on. And if he's here, that means things are gonna be okay. Okay, huh. The black-haired man finally sat up, his hair being a disheveled mess, his clothes stained with alcohol and a horrible stench, And when he turned around to reveal his face, his eyes were sore and red, as if the man hadn't got any sleep in a long time. "You think, that guy makes everything okay?" He laughed aloud, which made Cream nervous as General positioned himself directly in front of her with Maria eyeing the man cautiously. "Let me tell ya something, kid. You think he's some kind of hero. He's not. He's a self-righteous brat who does whatever the hell he wants and doesn't give a damn about anyone but himself. He goes around ruining families and making kids feel like they can't trust who they're supposed to trust." He snatched a beer bottle from another guy at a table and drank it all in one sitting as he walked towards Cream, with even Big getting ready to step in, while Dee and Dudley both looked nervous. "He ain't a hero, he's a brother's damn fraud." "That's not nice," Cream stated. "You shouldn't say mean things about people you don't know." "Chow chow." Cheese chippered fiercely in agreement. "Oh, I know Blue Boy plenty. Like how he stole my nieces." Kiro shouted. "Stand down." General stood directly in front of him. "You are heavily intoxicated. Go screw yourself, robot boy." Kiro tried to punch General, only for the robot to duck as Big came in and let Kiro's fist hit his stomach. Big absorbed the blow with little issue before puffing his chest up to push Kiro back, which only caused him to stumble into a table with 6 men already halfway drunk there, and the minute he hit the table, it collapsed completely as the mugs were sent flying in nearly every direction, striking several patrons in their head. One such patron turned around to a drunken man who laughed at his misfortune, only to get punched in the face. This started a domino effect that led to a bar fight ensuing, with all the patrons punching and tackling each other. Even Dee and Dudley picked up Kiro by his arms. "Someone's looking to start trouble," Dee said. "You gotta pay for all our drinks." Dudley didn't get the chance to finish as Kiro headbutted him, which led to Dee punching him in the face before Kiro punched him back. "I think we should talk outside," Maria said to Cream and her group, wanting to get them out of danger. "Agreed," General said as Big acted like a living shield to protect them from all the objects thrown in their direction, which included a few glasses and bottles. Fortunately, Big was durable enough to take it all and not be damaged. It was a good thing he didn't bring Froggy with him, he could have gotten really hurt. The severely drunk Kiro threw Dee into a table, causing it to break apart before Dudley tackled him to the ground and punched him repeatedly. But Kiro moved his head out of the way as Dudley punched a broken shot glass on the ground, causing him to yell in pain before Kiro grabbed him and threw him over the bar, causing the barkeep to duck as Dudley smashed against a wall. 4 other patrons tried to grab and restrain him, but Kiro waved his arms to throw them off before drawing his weapon in its sword mode. "Come on." He waved Harbinger around threateningly. "I need someone to chop up. Come on, make my day." A man walked up with a no-nonsense attitude, grabbed probably the only intact bottle in the whole bar, and smashed it on Kiro's head to knock him out. "Who wants to take out this trash?" Everyone cheered as they all picked up the unconscious Kiro and threw him out onto the street outside, right beside Maria, Cream, Cheese, General, and Big. "Oh no, is he alright?" Cream asked with worry. "His life does not appear to be in any danger," General reported upon scanning him. "Though he is unconscious and will likely experience digestive issues with the amount of alcohol he has consumed. I wouldn't worry about him." Maria waved off. "Just another sore huntsman who's probably upset about the council's orders. He said he knew Mr. Sonic," Cream said as she went over to Kiro and flipped him over on his back with cheese. "Mr. Sonic, you mean the Golden Hero?" Maria asked. "Yes. Sonic is usually blue, but he turns gold when he becomes supersonic," Big explained. "It's pretty amazing. Maybe we should take him with us," Cream offered. "And you could come with us, Ms. Maria. You seem like the type to know a lot about this place." "Well, aren't you an excellent judge of character?" Maria rubbed the girl's head with a smile. "It may be a good idea to follow these characters, to know where exactly they came from, just to make sure no Grimm or people with malicious intent got a hold of them. And if this golden hero was a real person, then it might give her some answers as to what's going on." "I would advise against that," General replied. His apparent hostility towards Sonic aside, Shade would not appreciate bringing outsiders. "But General, we don't know anything about this place," Cream countered. "Mr. Sonic might be here, but we don't know where he is. And Mr. Sonic might not know we're here either. What do you think, Cheese?" "Chow chow." Cheese smiled, saying that he agreed with Cream. Shade might understand if it's an emergency. And this whole thing seems like a pretty big emergency. Big added. Very well. General accepted. But I will be watching him at all times. If he shows any hostility towards you, I will detain him. Alright. Come with us, Ms. Maria. Cream took Maria's hand with both of hers and led her around the corner of the bar while Big carried Kiro, and General and Cheese followed. Once they went into the alleyway, they found a pink and white car resembling a Volkswagen with the front license plate reading, Amy Rose. Big sat in the back with the unconscious Kiro, while Cream, Cheese, and Maria sat in the front with General at the steering wheel. This car belongs to my friend, Amy. Cream explained to Maria, but she lets her friends borrow it if she needs to. Aren't you rather young to be driving? Maria asked the girl. Oh, I'm not driving. General is. Cream said as General pressed the ignition button, which not only caused the car to start up, but even the wheels on the side flipped horizontally as energy emitted outward, causing the car to hover, much to Maria's surprise, before it took off to the sky. Once the car flew off, the same man who had knocked out Kiro in the bar, watched them vanish from sight. He then took out his scroll and made a call. Raven, you're not gonna believe who I just ran into. Menagerie. The basement underneath the Belladonna house was largely unfurnished, with the only structures being support pillars for the main building above. And currently, it served as a makeshift prison for the Albane brothers, both of whom were restrained with chains on pillars across from each other as they were presently being interrogated. Alright, I'll ask the questions here, see. Sun began as he put on a tough guy impression, wearing sunglasses and a fake mustache. Tell me who else is working with you creeps, see. Neither Corsac, nor Fennec said anything as they glared at the monkey Faunus. The silent treatment ain't gonna do you any good, see. Sun continued. Just make it easy on yourself and tell me what you wanna know, see. Is he serious right now? SBO asked Blake as they and the rest of the Chaotix watched Sun acting like someone from an 80s cop show. I'm afraid so. Blake pinched the bridge between her eyes. Alright kid, let me take a crack at it. Vector stood up and pulled Sun away as Charmy flew beside his leader. Look here boys, you got two options. 1. You tell me and my pals everything you know about Eggman and that punk Adam, and I'll go easy on ya. Heck, I'll even get you a box of donuts. Or 2, we get rough with ya. He cracked his knuckles. And trust me, you do not wanna get rough with us. No, you do not. Charmy added. So, talk you creepy bad guys. Once again, the Albane brothers stared defiantly and uttered not a single word. Okay, rough it is. SBO. Vector snapped his fingers. Immediately, the chameleon flashed a kunai and threw it towards Fennec, the blade just grazing his face and impacting the pillar, the fox Faunus noticing a liquid substance dripping from the blade. Noticed, did you? SBO began. That right there is a special paralyzing poison of my own design. Once hit by it, it will eat away at your central nervous system, very slowly, and rather painfully. He walked towards Corsac. And once it runs its course, your nerves are completely scorched. You will never feel so much as the wind on your skin the rest of your life, unable to twitch so much as a finger. And unless you will have someone feed you all your meals through an IV, you will starve to death. A very slow end. Even though you will no longer be able to feel it, the mental agony will still be there as you wait for the darkness to take you. He flashed another kunai, one that dripped the same liquid, and pointed it towards Corsac's neck. Your aura may make penetrating the skin more difficult, but I can fix that too. Breaking your aura is not a hard task, but a rather painful one, for you anyway. Sun shivered as even Blake looked wide-eyed at that, while Vector crossed his arms with a smirk as Charmy hid behind him, buzzing with fear and panic. However, rather than show any kind of fear or further defiance, Corsac leaned himself closer to the blade, looked SBO right in the eye and said two words. Do it. Excuse me. SBO questioned. I would rather suffer such an end than betray High Leader Taurus. Corsac said defiantly. As would I. Fennec added, sharing the same facial expression and tone as your brother. Are you too crazy? Sun exclaimed. You'd die for that whack job. And he ain't nobody's High Leader, that's Sienna Khan's job. Sienna may have allowed for us to defend ourselves against the oppressive humans, but she would have us stand as their equal, when we are far superior. Corsac stated. And yet, you are willing working for a human like Eggman. Blake stated as she stepped forward to them. Who is clearly using all of you. Once he's done, he'll throw you away like trash. The doctor is a means to an end for the great Taurus, and our cause. Fennec argued. Once we have earned his trust, we will slay him and take his empire just as we will do so for Khan. The future of all Faunus kind is at stake. And for the sake of the future, all can be sacrificed. Corsac added. Including us. Espio had to back away as he looked to his teammates in surprise. They'd dealt with maniacs before, but nothing of this fanatical level. They would really throw their lives away for this atom punk. Their own lives meant nothing. And that applies to especially you, Belladonna. Fennec warned as he and Corsac both eyed her dangerously. You betrayed us, sided with the humans, a Shni no less. He spoke that name with such venom. Therefore, you will suffer the same fate as that wretched family, an example to all those who dare betray our people and side with their oppressors. Corsac glared. Blake glared back, but her fist shook with both fear and anger, something Vector and Sun both noticed as the crocodile motioned for Espio to stop, the chameleon putting away his kunai and retrieving the other one, making sure neither brother had any means of escaping. We've taken down Eggman before, he ain't invincible. And we'll do it again. The crocodile told the fanatics as the group prepared to leave. Same thing for your punk kid leader. Worship him as much as you want in your jail cell. The group of 5 then went up the steps and turned off the lights, leaving the Albane brothers in pitch-black darkness. Nothing. Gira asked as Blake, the Chaotix, and Sun met him and his wife in the main room of their house. Nothing. Espio shook his head. Those guys are crazy. Charmy exclaimed. For real. Even with a poisoned freaking dagger, they were just all, do it, we don't care what you do to us. Sun added. Where did they get off acting like they're the heroes here? There was no poison. It was a bluff. Espio revealed as he wiped the juice from his kunai. I had hoped to scare them, but you would have to be sane in order to feel fear. I had a feeling they'd be difficult, and stubborn, but they can't be that bad, Callie muttered. No, Mom, they are that bad. Blake confirmed with a serious look in her eye, which only made Callie's face go pale with even Gira looking disturbed. They didn't think it was a bluff. The way they talked about Taurus, it was as if they believe him to be their messiah. Espio said, as if he would truly guide them to the future they seek. Either that punk kid's got him thoroughly brainwashed, or he himself thinks he's a kind of chosen one. Vector commented, not sure which is more dangerous. So, what do we do now? Charmy asked. I talked with Sonic and the others a bit ago, they know where Sienna is, and he said he was going to try and talk with her. Blake said. You think he can get through to her? Sun asked. I'm hopeful. Blake nodded. But if those two were really working for Adam, how many more of the White Fang did he convert to his side? Don't worry about Sonic, he can handle himself. Vector told her. What we should be doing is focusing on what we can do here. He looked to Gira. Those two were heads of the White Fang in Menagerie, right? How big is the branch here? Compared to Vale and Mistral, relatively small. The chieftain of Menagerie answered. I wouldn't exactly expect a small army, but I wouldn't say they're not dangerous either. If those two don't report back to their base, their goons are gonna come looking for them. Vector said. We should find out just who else is involved with Eggman here. What about the Chaos Emerald? Charmy asked. Isn't there one here too? There is. Blake confirmed as she pulled out her scroll and showed the map. Tails was able to pick up the general locations of the other emeralds on Remnant, but not precise coordinates. But he did manage to find one somewhere in the middle of the desert out here. It doesn't look as big as the one in Vacuo, and I know deserts. Sun said with a smirk. Should be able to find it pretty easily. I know those deserts myself. Gira added. You'll need someone who can guide you through it. Especially given the Grimm that live there. We should also call up the council, too. Callie said. See if we can find a way to prepare ourselves for this Eggman or anyone else who works for him to show up. You have a council? Sun asked in surprise. I thought Menagerie wasn't a kingdom. It's not like the other kingdoms, councils, Sun. Blake explained. It's basically everyone who is in charge of the other settlements on the island. Alright then. Espio, you got the location for the White Fang base here from those two nutjobs downstairs? Vector asked. Yes. Espio confirmed as he pulled out the stolen scroll that had belonged to Corsac. Then you and Blake sneak over there. Vector instructed. Find out just how deep this whole thing goes. Charmy, you stay here with Callie and keep an eye on those creeps. You got it, Vector. Charmy saluted and smiled while Blake and Espio both nodded seriously. Sun, Gira, and I are heading to the desert to find that Chaos Emerald. Vector finished. We're on the job now, Chaotix. Let's get this done. Mount Nakla. The base of the White Fang was being torn apart as Sonic dashed across the floors and walls with the large Egg Byakko running after him on all fours, a trail of electricity raging behind the mechanical tiger. Sonic ran straight up the wall towards the ceiling while the Egg Byakko used its claws to dig at the wall and leap after him, but Sonic had already made it to the ceiling and performed a spin dash towards the dust-powered Badnik. Only for a large surge of electrical power to explode outright from the Egg Byakko and blast Sonic away to the other side of the hallway he was fighting in. Though Sonic ended up crashing in the wall, he watched as the lighting stopped surging around the robotic tiger, giving Sonic a chance to move in with a powerful homing attack to smash the Egg Byakko into the wall that it was climbing on before following through with a series of rapid homing attacks and spin dashes all across the Egg Byakko to smash it into the ground with Sonic landing on his feet right before it. Yow! Sonic gave a surprised yelp as the Egg Byakko recovered to lash out its electric claws at Sonic, the blue hedgehog just barely avoiding the claws as they grazed his back before he dashed to the other side of the room. This thing works almost exactly like the Egg Zeus back at Beacon, only way smaller. Sonic thought to himself as he faced the recovering Badnik. It's plenty tough too. I could handle it with enough time, but he glanced to his side to see one of the many dead bodies of the White Fang agents that Atom's insurgents had recently killed. Time might not be what I got right now. And this thing might be too much for Sienna and her pals to handle. I gotta end this now and help them out before it's too late. Come on, kitty cat. Let's go. Sonic challenged as he dashed to the Egg Byakko, which gave another digitized roar as it charged at him again with its electrical claws. Meanwhile, back in the throne room, 7 White Fang agents fired their guns at the charging Haibai, who tanked the gunshots with his armor and aura before ramming them all down and slicing his trident to rapidly cut and slice the traitors down while they were on the ground. However, he soon found himself grappling with Gwei as the bear Faunus charged him, grabbed his trident by the pole and tried to wrestle it from him. But Haibai held his weapon firmly as the two pressed their strength against each other, but the ox and bear Faunus seemed equal with one another. Though this left Haibai open for Yuma to fly in via bat wings and slashed at his back with a dual pair of Tekko Kagi claw weapons, causing Yuma a great deal of pain and forcing him to falter as Gwei pushed him to the ground. Fortunately, Wucheng came to his brother's aid, spinning his weapon above his head to extend the chain and steel ball to smash into Gwei's face and Yuma's side to force them back. But as Wucheng stood over his brother, Bai rushed him at rapid speed, drawing a whip-like weapon made out of water, courtesy of water dust, and flailed it at Wucheng, who slashed his spear tip to disrupt the whip, but it still allowed Bai to come in with a jump and perform several rapid kicks to his chest to push him back. His spear was then yanked out of his hands by a stand of webbing shot out of the hands of Trifa as she pulled back to remove Wucheng's weapon as Bai rushed him again with her water whip. However, Haibai recovered to grab Bai by her foot, slammed her onto the ground and threw her into Trifa to knock them both down. Wucheng recovered his weapon as he and Haibai nodded to each other, coming back to back as Yuma and Gwei recovered with 6 remaining insurgents, all of whom surrounded the pair. Sienna and her only 2 remaining supporters were fighting for their lives against the many traitors in their own cause. And yet, surprisingly, they were able to hold their own rather well. Sienna had her chain-bladed whip weapon, Cerberus Whip, out and spun it all around her to block the repeated spear strikes of her traitorous guards. All 4 came at her from all directions and lunged their spears at her simultaneously. But Sienna flailed her Cerberus whip to entangle 2 spears together while also splitting her feet to pull herself down and avoid the lunge of the last 2 spears, while also pulling hard on her whip to snap the spears she caught out of the 2 guards' hands before slicing her whip at one to knock him down and ensnared the neck of the other with said whip and hauled him over herself to knock him into the other 2 guards. Noticing a flash of red out of the corner of her eye, Sienna looked to see Atom dashing at her, the sword of Wilt being drawn and ready for a slash. But Sienna quickly pulled on her chain to tighten it and block the sword strike as she glared hard at the young man. "Don't resist, Sienna. It'll only make it that much harder," he told her. "For you." She snarled as she wrapped her chain around his sword and pulled him in to deliver a flip kick to his jaw while also snapping Cerberus whip to yank Wilt from his grasp. Adam fired the gun mode of Blush at Sienna, but she flipped over the shots before leaping up in the air as she spun her chain around and launched a detachable dust blade at Adam, which he blocked with his prosthetic arm just as Sienna landed with a smirk. The dust blade exploded in a flurry of fire, but Sienna's smirk quickly vanished as she saw not only was Adam still standing, but his robotic arm was now glowing bright red along with his hair, and red accents on his mask and outfit before he slashed his arm upward to send a wave of energy at Sienna, who was too shocked to even block it, sending her flying and crashing to her throne, which broke upon impact. The tiger faunus recovered quickly enough, but her look of shock was still present as Adam had recovered Wilt with one hand and showed off his robotic arm in the other, which was now glowing red for a different reason. "You like it?" He showed said arm to Sienna. "A gift from Eggman. Seems like my semblance isn't limited to just weapons, but even prosthetics. And that's not even the best part." Clenching his fist, a long red blade, resembling that of a broadsword emerged from the wrist of the robotic arm, effectively giving him dual-wield swords. "One of many gifts that our kind will receive as we take this world for ourselves," he boasted as he and the 4 traitorous guards stood back up. "You love your little toy so much," Sienna snarled as she readied Cerberus whip again. "Then how about I snap it in half first before I do your neck?" She lunged at him once again. Kiro gave a mighty yell as he swung Harbinger in its scythe mode upwards to completely bisect a Beowulf. He then spun the scythe rapidly around his body to cut to pieces several more Beowulfs that charged at him from all directions. Once he was finished with them, he saw an Ursa coming at him from behind. Kiro turned around and charged for the bear-like Grim and jumped over a slice of its claws to swiftly decapitate it with a swing of his weapon, landing behind it to come face to face with a Death Stalker as it lunged its tail at him, but Kiro jumped backwards to avoid the stinger and converted Harbinger into its gun mode to shoot it rapidly in the face, killing it quickly enough. A loud screech echoed through the air, getting Kiro's attention as he looked up to see an incoming Nevermore and several griffins flying down towards him. Kiro kept his usual smirk up as he simply took his bird form and flew up to the air to meet the flying Grim head-on, going for one griffin as he turned back to normal to slice Harbinger's scythe mode to cut down that griffin and leapt up to another to cut it apart and jumped to the next griffin to kill that one, repeating the process over and over until only the Nevermore remained. The massive bird-like Grim was directly below Kiro and gave a loud screech as it flew straight up towards him, and Kiro let himself fall to meet the Nevermore in the air. Before they collided, Kiro raised his scythe up high and with a mighty swing, brought it down onto its head, killing it and causing it to fall down with a loud thud. Kiro landed gracefully on his feet with a confident and relieved smile. Another day, another Grim pack slain, and another day that the people can live in peace. It was his duty as a huntsman, the life he chose. And he had no regrets. But as he went to retrieve Harbinger, the second he grabbed it by the pole, his face turned pale as his eyes widened in horror as to what he saw. His scythe was not impaling the head of a Nevermore, but rather into the stomach of Ruby Rose. The girl looking up to Kiro in shock and heartbreak. "You uncle, cute Kiro," she shakily reached out to him as blood oozed out of her mouth. And it wasn't just her. Looking past her, Kiro saw the broken and bloodied bodies of Yang Xiaolong, Taiyang Xiaolong, Winter Schnee, Glinda Goodwitch, James Ironwood, Leonardo Lionheart, Theodore, and even Ozpin. All of them laid across the bloodied ground, having been stabbed, slashed, and broken in every way possible. All their eyes were wide open and pale, showing absolutely no life in any of them. Kiro's face was absolutely pale as he looked down to Ruby once more, who was just barely holding onto life. "Kiro, why?" Those were her last words before she went limp. No, I didn't. How could you?" Turning to his left, Kiro gasped as he saw Summer Rose looking at him with devastation and heartbreak, and Raven Bronwyn was right beside her, but her back was turned to her brother, like she wasn't even acknowledging him. "I trusted you with my daughter, our family. I trusted you, Kiro." Summer bawled. "Summer, he tried to reach out to her. But the second he touched her, her body dissipated in a flurry of white rose petals, while Ravens did the same in a flurry of black bird feathers, all of which swirled around Kiro in a vortex of black and white. "It's too late. I'm gone. We're all gone." Because of you, Summer screeched. I loved you and you pushed me away. Pushed all of us away. You push away everyone who loves you. I was wrong about you. You are a cursed human. No, wait. He desperately cried out for her, only for both the white petals and black feathers to vanish completely, leaving Kiro alone to fall to his knees in a puddle of blood. But he didn't even get the chance to process that as a sinister laugh echoed behind him. Fine work, boy. His heart stopping, Kiro turned around to see a man wearing black and red armor and dark furred clothing like a bandit king. Though his face was partially obscured by shadows, Kiro would never forget the sound of his voice. You've finally done the tribe proud, Kiro. Please no, tears flowed out of his eyes as he felt himself sink into the puddle of blood. And no matter how hard he tried to pull himself out, he could never escape. No, 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 no. Kiro woke up with a scream. Whoa, take it easy. Take it easy. Maria was already at his side, putting a hand on his shoulders while Cream and Cheese came at the other. Kiro looked around frantically, finding himself in an unfamiliar environment, surrounded by grass and trees, appearing to be in a forest. Yet, his head was still spinning as he heard all unrecognizable voices around him, and he could only see blurs of unfamiliar individuals. Warning, your stress levels are abnormally high. General advised the man as he seemed like he was having a panic attack. It's okay. Cream immediately hugged Kiro on the side with Cheese doing the same. It's okay, mister. It's okay, you're safe. Being drawn by the warm feeling at his side, he looked to the little rabbit girl and her tiny blue pet that were doing their best to comfort him. This little girl was trying to calm a grown man, a stranger, who was having a panic attack. This is the very same sort of thing RWBY would do. The reminder of his youngest niece did calm some of his nerves, but not all of them, something Maria noticed as she stepped in. Take a deep breath. The old lady breathed in for emphasis, drawing Kiro's attention. A deep breath, young man. She took her own deep breath, which prompted Kiro to do the same as he inhaled deeply before letting it out. Again, deep breath, Maria instructed, to which Kiro followed as he inhaled again and exhaled. One more time, she said, and Kiro did so. By the time he let out his third breath, his nerves had calmed down enough to where he could focus as best as he could. Are you okay, mister? Cream asked with concern. Yeah, Kiro tried to stand up, having slept on a pile of leaves and twigs like a makeshift bed that those around him had set up for him. But the second he stood up, his cheeks bulged as he felt what was in his stomach climbing back up. Kiro bolted out of the forest into a visible cliffside, where he threw up rather loudly and violently. After a full 30 seconds of barfing his guts out, he wiped his face and ended up looking straight down to the vast ocean that was well below all the clouds that they were floating on top of. As it turns out, Kiro was now on a giant floating island. Oh, hey there, mister. Turning around, Kiro saw something that made his heart practically stop. You're awake. That's good to see, Big said with relief. Ribbit, the frog on his shoulder croaked. But it wasn't the giant cat or his pet frog that got his attention. It was the giant stone shrine that he saw, with the massive, glowing, human-sized emerald that was perched at the top. Just looking at this enormous jewel felt like he was staring at the sun itself. He couldn't take his eyes off it with how mesmerized he was. Hey! A snap of a pair of fingers broke him out of his trance as he turned to see a female echidna with tomato-orange fur and pink eyes, clad in black futuristic armor with glowing purple accents on her silver armbands and black boots. You can look, but don't touch, not if you value your life. That's not nice, Miss Shade. Cream said to the echidna as she, Cheese, General, and Maria came onto the scene. You shouldn't threaten your guests like that. Chow chow. Cheese chippered in agreement. I'm not threatening him, Shade replied. I'm just letting him know that it will literally be his funeral if he removes the Master Emerald from its shrine. She then looked to Kiro. Which will send this whole island, including yourself, plummeting to the ocean below. The island itself might survive, but we will not. Oh, I see. Kiro could tell right away that this echidna lady meant business. Her whole demeanor reminded him very much of Winter. Not only that, but a giant magical gemstone being the reason this island was even floating made sense, given Winter's whole home kingdom was basically the same thing due to the staff that was hidden underneath Atlas Academy. Well, pretty sure I couldn't move something that big even if I wanted to. And I ain't the type to destroy other people's homes, so. Good. Just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. Shade smiled and nodded. And you would be? Name's Kiro. Shade. She nodded. Your name is Kiro. That's a really nice name. I'm Cream, and this is Cheese. Chow chow. The little chow floated up to Kiro's face with a smile. My name is Big, and this is my best buddy, Froggy. Big introduced. Say hi, Froggy. Ribbit. The frog croaked again. How original. Kiro didn't speak his words but had a teasing smirk still on his face. And the robot. He gestured to the small robot by his side. I am designated General. Cream's protector and caregiver. Hello. The robot introduced. And you. He looked to the old lady last. Maria Calavera. I found you at that bar where you picked a fight and almost got these kind strangers dragged into it. She gestured to Cream in her group. But the sweet girl was concerned for you, so she brought you here, and I tagged along to make sure nobody got hurt. Shade still wasn't completely happy with bringing strangers over to Angel Island. Knuckles may be the true guardian of this place, but he entrusted the task of protecting the Master Emerald to her if he was unable to, and that was a mission she took very seriously. But given their circumstances, she could make an exception, especially since this man apparently knew Sonic. So, how exactly did you all end up in Mistral? Kiro asked as he sat down on the ground to get comfortable. I'm guessing you're not from here. Oh, it was the weirdest thing. Cream explained as she and everyone else sat down too. It was getting lonely since my friends went off on another adventure, so I asked my mother if we could visit our friend Ms. Shade and see if she needed the company. She let me and Cheese go if General went with us. We ran into Big and Froggy along the way and asked if they wanted to come, and they did. Angel Island has all kinds of great fishing spots. It's a nice place to relax. Big added. But a couple hours after we showed up, the Master Emerald began to glow super bright. Cream went on. The whole island was covered in a big glow. And the next thing we knew, all of Angel Island had appeared somewhere else. My sensors indicated that it was a warp in space-time not too dissimilar from Chaos Control. General informed. However, the source of the phenomena originated from the Master Emerald itself. Which apparently has never happened before. Shade looked away with curiosity and seriousness. That being said, perhaps you can help. She looked to Kiro. Me. He honestly had no idea how they'd get that impression. Not that he wouldn't offer to help people in need, but he didn't know half of what was going on here. They say you know their friend. Maria explained. A blue hedgehog named Sonic. Ah, now it made sense. Yeah, one good look at all these guys and he could tell they were from Sonic's world. Hell, that giant glowing rock looked exactly like a Chaos Emerald, only 100 times bigger. Master Emerald, that's definitely not an exaggerating title. However, hearing that name again caused all kinds of mixed feelings to bubble up inside of him, but he didn't get a chance to dwell on them as he noticed a flash of black out of the corner of his eye, specifically in the forest he was previously resting in. Hey is there a place I can wash up? Kiro asked. I still got a nasty taste in my mouth. There's a small stream a bit deep into that forest. Shade pointed to said forest. Thanks. He stood up with a slight groan. Be right back. After about 10 minutes of walking through said forest, Kiro managed to find said stream. Once there, he kneeled down, cupped up some water into his hands and put into his mouth. He swirled around for a brief moment before spitting to get all the vomit taste. Once it was all out, he splashed some more water on his face before kneeling up straight. You can come out now, Raven. Not even turning around, a black bird had flown out from the tree behind him, which then transformed to reveal none other than his older twin sister. Well, you look terrible. Even more than usual, she said as her brother turned around to face her directly. Menagerie. Gira drove a vehicle that looked something similar to a Humvee without a top through the desert-filled landscape, which looked similar to the Australian desert back on Earth. The ground was rock hard with a thin layer of sand over it, the occasional old tree, bush, and cactus with several small mountains and rocky hills. Yeah, this place is not like Vacuo. Sun said as he and Vector both sat in the back of the vehicle. When settlers first came to Menagerie, they tried to live in this environment like how people do in Vacuo. Gira explained. But the soil was too tough to farm any food, there's barely any water here, not to mention the Grimm that live in this place. Should we be worried about that last part? What kind of grim can we expect to find here? Vector asked. You'll typically find the likes of taijutsu or death stalkers, at least in daytime. Kiro revealed. But the worst grim typically come out at night. They're called Nosferaltus, essentially large humanoid bats. They dwell in those mountains during the day. Kiro gestured to one such mountain. But when night falls, they swarm the skies of this desert and prey on anyone unlucky enough to enter their turf. And these guys aren't a problem for you at night. What's to stop them from flying into your village? Sun questioned. Menagerie hasn't had any major crime activities when compared to the likes of Mistral or Vacuo, so there's been no moments of panic big enough to draw their attention. Kiro answered before looking concerned. But in our current situation, I fear that could change at any moment. No sense worrying about what we can't control, let's just focus on what we got going right now. Vector told him as he looked at his scroll to see the coordinates Tails provided. Like finding that Chaos Emerald. Lucky for us, we're in the area. Pull over. Kiro did as requested and stopped his vehicle, allowing the three to exit. As they did, Sun noticed Kiro holding a large battle axe. Hey, I thought you were a pacifist. Why use a giant axe? Trying to avoid violence against people is one thing, at least people can be reasoned with. Kiro replied. Soulless Grim on the other hand. Not so much. Okay, makes sense. Sun nodded. So, where are we supposed to find this emerald thing? Vector looked at the scroll again. It should be in this general area, but Tails couldn't get the exact coordinates. Just keep an eye out for a glowing gemstone. You can't miss it. The trio then went off in separate directions, though stayed within relative eyesight and earshot of each other just in case any of them found anything useful or anything dangerous. Vector lifted a large boulder with one hand, looked down to find only a swarm of bugs, but no Chaos Emerald. Kiro cut down a few bushes and found nothing there but some wild rabbits that ran as soon as they saw him. Sun climbed to the top of one tree to try and get a higher vantage point. Hey, what if this emerald happened to pop up in one of those Nosferaltu mountains? Sun asked, calling out to his comrades. Better hope not. Vector replied back. Knuckles and one of your friends said that they fought a Grim that got supercharged by a Chaos Emerald. If that happens here, we're gonna have one heck of a fight on our hands. Sun looked on but didn't seem to spot anything from his vantage point, so he hopped down off the tree and happened close to Kiro. Anything? The chieftain asked. Nope, can't see anything shining. Maybe it ended up underground. Sun wondered. Perhaps. Kiro thought about it before looking towards Vector as he pushed aside another boulder and spotted something that drew the crocodile's attention. Hey, over here. Vector waved over for the two to join him. Once caught up, they found themselves looking down into a rather crater with a small pit at the very center of it. But what stood out the most was how the surface of the crater shined from the sunlight reflecting off it. It's shiny. Sun looked in confusion. It's glass. Kiro realized. Sand only turns to glass when it's superheated, like a meteor or a magical gemstone crashing into the ground. Vector realized with a smirk. I think we found a winner. Step back. He motioned for Kiro and Sun to step back as Vector used his fists to smash the glass ground and dig his way deeper. He was no master digger like Knuckles, but his own strength would make it easier to tear the ground up underneath and hopefully find what they were looking for. Sun smiled reminiscently. Ya know, it's times like these I wish my cousin was here. She'd love doing stuff like this. Is your cousin a huntress, Sun? Kiro asked. No, she owns her own dojo in Vacuo. Sun explained. But she's tough enough that she might as well be one. Growing up though, I always ventured off into the desert looking for adventure and she'd always follow and drag me back when I would sometimes bite off more than I could chew, which happened a lot. What about your parents? Kiro wondered. No. They died when I was a kid. Sun answered, much to Kiro's shock. I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's cool. Sun assured. I was really young when it happened, I don't even remember their faces. Star took care of me growing up, she's pretty much the only family I got. But I ain't lonely if that's what you're thinking. I got lots of friends everywhere, your daughter too. You mean my daughter whom you stalked twice? Kiro looked with a frown and a raised eyebrow. Sun backpedaled. I mean, I wasn't trying to hurt her or. He was caught off guard by Kiro chuckled. I'm kidding. I know you only did it because you care, Sun. Just be more respectful of people's boundaries. And, you could have just simply asked. Yeah, I've been told. Sun winced slightly. A loud smash got both of their attention as Vector raised his arms up high to smash his fists into the ground, further breaking the ground apart, the hole now being 20 feet deep. And once it was all broken down, a bright purple light shined out, revealing the glowing purple Chaos Emerald at the bottom. Hey, we got it. Sun said excitedly. Isn't that great? He looked to Gira, only to be confused at how pale his face was, causing Sun to look down himself and see why Gira looked so frightened. Vector saw it as well. It wasn't the Chaos Emerald that made him so nervous. It was what it was attached to. And that was all the bone armor and swirling black flesh as the ground suddenly began to quake and shake. Vector quickly jumped out of the pit as large cracks formed on the ground and spread rapidly across the area. Move it. The crocodile warned as the trio tried to run back towards the Humvee, only for the ground behind them to explode outward, sending rocks and boulders flying in every direction. One such rock smashed into the vehicle, rendering it inoperable, much to their shock before the rumbling stopped, and a series of animalistic growls could be heard behind them. Turning around, Vector, Gira, and Sun both looked to see just what exactly had emerged from the ground. It was a Grim. Not just any Grim, but a Taijutsu. One far larger than any either had seen before. Its body being 4 times as large and thick. But what stood out the most was that while a King Taijutsu had 2 heads, one in the front and the other in the back, this one had 8. 4 were blackened on one end, and the other 4 were whitened on the other. All 8 heads eyed the trio as they saw its attached snake-like body covered in bone armor, with the purple Chaos Emerald being stuck on its back and welded into the armor. All 8 of the heads pulled back as flames could be seen from the back of each of the throats, something Gira was instantly alerted to. Duck. With that, Gira, Sun, and Vector all scattered in opposite directions to avoid the 8 streams of fire that shot from each of the 8 heads which all but glazed the ground they were previously standing on. Fire. How the heck can a Taijutsu breath fire? And since when does it have 8 heads? Sun exclaimed as he pulled out his weapon. It must have fire dust inside its body, and it may have mutated from the Chaos Emerald attached to it. Gira assumed as he drew his axe. Vector cracked his knuckles as he looked at the 8-headed Taijutsu seriously. Well, nobody said it was gonna be easy. Back in Kuokuana, Blake and Espio, the latter had Cyclone and Inferno strapped to his back, quickly and quietly moved through the alleyways of several small buildings, making their way closer to their destination. They soon stopped in between 2 houses, just outside a small street where they found their target, a relatively small yet 2-story house that appeared to have a small number of faunus around it, all of whom seemed to be minding their own business, even making small talk. But one close enough look, and both the cat faunus and chameleon could see some concealed weapons. Guards hidden in plain sight. Espio muttered. I'm assuming this would be Corsac and Fennec's house. Probably set up regular meetings here. Menagerie doesn't have the resources to build a base like the Kingdoms. Blake said. But there could be guards inside. Espio looked towards the roof of the house, spotting a small window that probably led to an attic inside. Judging by the size of the roof, the attic would be small and cramped for the average person, yet he was smaller compared to the size of the average person here. I'll scout inside. Look for my signal on the upper window on the east wall. Espio instructed as he held a kunai, and angled it to reflect the light from the sun, illustrating the signal. I will signal you if it is all clear. Understood. Blake nodded as Espio made a ninja sign with his hands and turned himself invisible. He then climbed to the roof of the house on his left and quietly leapt over the street to land on the roof of Corsac and Fennec's house, making sure not to make any noise that would draw the guards' attention outside. Once on the roof, Espio made his way to the attic window and used his kunai to quietly slice the lock and slide the window open, allowing the invisible chameleon to slip in before he closed it behind him. Espio was right. The attic he was in was small and cramped, barely enough space to fit storage. But crawling along his hands and feet, he was able to find the hatch that would lead deeper into the house. Being especially quiet and focusing his hearing, Espio tried to listen for signs of anyone being inside the house. He heard no such noise. It would appear that the house was empty. Though he still remained invisible to be safe, Espio pushed the hatch open and allowed him to exit the attic, dropping into a hallway on the second floor of the house. He then noticed 4 points of interest, a stairway that led to the main floor downstairs, and 3 separate doors. He tested one door behind him to see if it was locked, which it wasn't. Opening it, he found that it was simply the bathroom, which he promptly closed. The door on his left was next, which was also unlocked. It was a bedroom that had 2 separate beds, no doubt for the brothers that lived here. It seemed relatively simple with just the beds and a dresser for clothes, along with the window he spotted outside. Closing that door, Espio went for the one on across, the last door he had yet to open. Testing that one, he saw that this was locked. Drawing his kunai again, Espio quietly sliced the lock open and opened it, revealing something that caused his eyes to narrow. Outside, Blake was quietly perched on the rooftop next to Corsac and Fennec's house, waiting for Espio's signal. Fortunately, nobody had noticed her. And yet, why didn't that feel as good as it should? But it made sense to feel that way. Why should she have to hide in her own home? Even if this place was a constant reminder that her people were still second-class citizens to the rest of Remnant, it was still her home. A part of her wondered what would happen if the rest of her friends came here and how they would react to it. She had a feeling that Ruby, Amy, Tails, and Knuckles would enjoy it, particularly the beach and quiet setting compared to the main cities. Sonic, she could guess, would probably be half and half. On one end, he'd enjoy the peace and quiet too, and maybe the tropical beaches as well, but on the other, it was way too cramped for him. Yang wouldn't like it being so cramped either. Constantly butting into people and her temper could lead to some potential conflict, but she was still hopeful that she'd find a way to cope, not that Blake would force her to. Weiss, on the other hand, that would be a different story. Aside from how cramped this place is, Blake feared what would happen if a Schnee came to Menagerie. At best, most of the Faunus would want to avoid her like the plague. At worst, people like Corsac and Fennec would target and endanger her life. Her thoughts were interrupted as a flash of light caught her attention. It was Espio's signal coming from the window across from her. Blake gave a nod, hoping that the chameleon inside saw her. The window was opened from the inside as Blake crouched on all fours like a cat and launched herself straight through the window with grace and silence, rolling across the floor just as Espio, now fully visible, closed the window. "The house is empty," he informed her as she stood up, briefly looking around to find she was in the brothers' bedroom most likely. "Did you find anything?" she asked. "The next room over." Espio led her out and into the hallway and towards the room across from the bedroom. With the door opened, Blake's eyes widened at what she saw. It was a small, yet well-furnished room, a far cry improvement compared to the rest of the house, and had not a single window inside. It had a hard tile floor with a dark red carpet, a series of sitting pillows across the ground, as if meetings were frequently held in this room, several bookshelves lined with books, various desks with unlit candles, potted plants, White Fang banners on nearly every wall, and a painted portrait of a hooded Faunus figure at the wall on the other side. The two walked inside as Blake found herself moving towards the portrait while Espio skimmed through whatever books he found. "Do you know this person?" he asked, referring to the Faunus on the portrait. "No, but it does look like them, maybe a relative." She assumed and looked down at the positions of the candles under the portrait. "It's a memorial. And it seems they've used this place for frequent meetings," Espio noted. Perhaps it was the loss of a family member that drove them to join Adam's cause. But to meet in here, drown yourself in your sorrow, your hate, no greater effective way to kill your own spirit. Blake looked away with mixed feelings at that. It sounded disgusting and yet, so familiar. It was an expression that Espio noticed. "I'm assuming several in the White Fang have lost their loved ones," he guessed. "You hear that kind of thing so often that you're almost used to it," Blake confirmed. "On one end, it's nice to know that there are people who understand your pain, but when you all drown in that pain together, does it really help?" "Was Adam like that?" Espio asked. She gave a single nod. "He said his parents worked at SDC facility in Mistral, but they were killed, so he was sent to work in their place as a kid." "Having a child work in labor?" Espio questioned in disgust. "Revolting." He was even branded on his face. Blake revealed, much to Espio's further shock. "I never saw what happened to him myself, but I did see his face on occasion. Said it was constant fuel to drive him, so that he'd never forget what humanity did to him. Never forget, never forgive, never let go. It becomes an obsession after that." Espio said. Yeah, add that along with his natural charisma, not to mention his skills as a fighter, and it's no surprise he got quite the support, including mine. Blake rubbed her arm uncomfortably. Were you too close? Espio asked. He was like an older brother. Blake answered. I believed in him. But, should I have said something sooner? Should I have tried to convince him to leave with me instead of just leaving by myself? Just because you are close to someone does not make you responsible for their choices. Espio stated. Adam chose to drown himself in hate and that led him to where he is now. Perhaps he had the potential to be a hero, but he had to let go of his pain in order to do that. Clearly, he did not. And that was his choice, not yours. Take responsibility for only your actions, do not let people like him make you feel their actions are your own fault. You're better than that, he encouraged with a slight smile. That caused her to smile as well. Even though she had just met him and the rest of the Chaotix, she could tell that they were good people. Just the fact that they chose to help her out of the kindness of their hearts alone was proof enough of that. Just like Sonic. Just like RWBY. Thanks, she smiled back. Espio nodded as he put the book he was holding away. Credit where it was due, the Albane brothers appeared rather well read. Pity that they couldn't use that to be more open-minded about the world, as opposed to the fanatical path that they have chosen. But as he put the book away, he noticed a sealed portfolio sticking out, which he swiftly drew. Opening up the folder, he spotted something that made him look more than a little disturbed. Blake. What is it? She walked over to him as he handed her the portfolio, and when she took out the contents, she gasped in shock over what she saw. So much so that she dropped it all and allowed it all to spill on the ground. They were pictures and photographs of her parents. Her mother and father. Both separately and together. Pictures of Callie in the market, photographs of Gira in meetings with other officials in Menagerie, and even pictures of both of them inside their house, seen through windows. There were even pictures of her family's house itself from nearly every angle. Pictures of windows on every side and other possible points of entry, and the environment around the building, like hilltops that provided vantage points. Corsac and Fennec were stalking her parents. Not only that, but they've also been around their house. So much so that even Gira and Callie were unaware. Points of entry, following them, Espio listed off as he looked through several pictures. You don't follow people this closely unless there is a target on their back. They were planning something with your parents. Espio said seriously. But I doubt they acted alone. Blake narrowed her eyes before looking towards the portrait at the end of the room again, where she saw a small holographic projector on the table just below the portrait. Making her way closer with Espio right behind her, Blake saw the more recent message on the projector and decided to bring that up. This pulled up a hologram of Adam himself, though he had both his arms, indicating this message was sent out before the Battle of Beacon. Dr. Eggman is preparing for his assault on Beacon. Make no moves against the Belladonna family until you hear from me. You've done well to keep an eye on them since Blake abandoned our cause. Wait for my next message and do nothing until then. The hologram cut off, leaving Espio to look with a glare. That was clearly Adam. He then turned towards Blake, who was doing her best to keep herself from lashing out. Adam had been spying on her family since she left. Did he intend to use them as hostages? Or even threaten them if she didn't come back? He made no mention of this at Beacon, maybe it was a trump card if all else failed. But it still made her sick to her stomach. Espio would have said something, only for Blake's scroll to ring out, snapping her out of her anger before she saw that it was Sun who was calling and answered. Yes, we need backup. Sun screamed so loudly that even Espio could hear. A giant 8-headed fire-breathing taijutsu has the Chaos Emerald and it's a serious problem. I know you guys are probably busy with your mission, but we need your help. Like now. We're on our way. Blake hung up. You are angry. Espio told her. Focus that anger right now into stopping the enemy. Channel it into a weapon. But I promise we'll protect your family and stop Adam before any lives are lost. I swear it. Blake nodded, seeing Espio's advice as well as attempt at comfort, before they dashed out quickly. Mount Naklov. Sonic dashed straight for the egg by Akko again, severing under the retaliatory slice of its electric claws and then dashed and spun all around the giant robotic tiger, a trail of blue energy whipping around it before another surge of electricity began to build up around it, something Sonic noticed. He kicked off the robot and went straight up as it unleashed another explosive wave of electricity, tearing up the floor and more of the hallway they fought in. Sonic did get singed a bit by the electrical blast, but not enough to do any serious damage. Once he saw the attack finished however, Sonic saw the Egg Sphinx slowing down just like before and smirked before he countered. He curled up with a spin dash and shot straight down with enough force to slam the Egg Sphinx hard into the ground before appearing at its front to deliver another homing attack to knock it back up and then unleashed a blue tornado technique to send it up into the air where he proceeded to jump and hit it with several more homing attacks, further damaging the robot, denting and breaking the armor, exposing several of its dust-lined circuitry, which Sonic saw light up again before he dropped down and let the Egg Sphinx fall, taking more damage as it powered back up again. Gotcha. Sonic smirked, figuring out this robot's pattern. If Sonic got too close, it would unleash the same kind of all-encompassing attack like Metal Sonic's V Maximum Overdrive or even the Egg Zeus. But this would also fry its circuits and cause it to slow down like Metal Sonic 2, leaving it open for Sonic to attack, so long as he hit it hard and fast. Just a couple more times and he was certain he could have this robot finished. Let's just hope Sienna and her friends can hold their own until then. Back in the throne chamber, nearly all the White Fang goons were beaten down, lying broken or even dead on the ground as RWBY and Wuchang both stood together, their armor severely damaged, their aura low, both covered in bruises and exhausted, yet still willing to fight as they stood across from Yuma, Trifa, Gui, and Bai, all four looking in just as bad shape themselves. You fight well, Gui granted in between breaths. Too bad you're on the wrong side. I was going to say that to you, traitor. Wuchang glared. RWBY glared as he stomped his foot and wielded his trident. Enough talk. With a mighty yell, he rushed his opponents again, lunging his spear forward and forcing all four to separate before Bai rolled on the ground and recovered behind RWBY to snap her water whip at his back, slicing off more of his armor as Yuma flew in to slice at him too with his Tekko Kagi claws, and while he was able to draw blood, RWBY stood firm as he reached out to grab Yuma by his foot, and slam him hard enough on the ground that it caused a crack to form before he threw Yuma into Bai. Trifa tried to lash out with her webbing towards Yuma, but Wuchang rushed in to spin and slash his weapon, the blade of the spear and chain ball, tearing through the webbing before he lashed out to slam the steel ball into her stomach and tried to lunge his spear at Gui, but the bear faunus caught it in his hands and used his strength to wrench it from his hands before tackling him to the ground and punched him in the face. But RWBY came to his brother's aid as he rammed his shoulder into Gui. Sienna sent out an ice dust blade towards Adam, who sliced it with his arm blade before he dashed at her with Wilt and sliced at her, which she blocked and parried with her chain. As the two locked weapons, they stepped and passed over all the dead guards that Sienna had killed. Adam also kicked her in the stomach and drove the handle of Wilt into her face to knock her into one dead guard. She picked herself up, catching her breath, only for her hand to feel the blood of the guard she had killed. She looked to the smirking Adam, and the second she saw him smirk, her anger only grew. That was your fault, Sienna. Adam said in a mocking tone. You killed them. Adam, she growled, baring her fangs, something the recovering Wuchang noticed. They came to me because they saw that I was right. Adam continued. All your talk about fighting, but you don't have the strength to do what needs to be done. To kill who needs to be killed. To take what's ours. You're every bit as weak as the Belladonnas. She growled again, her eyes flashing dangerously, his smirk only growing. But I'll be sure to take good care of Blake, and make sure that she and her family are buried next to you. With a roar, Sienna charged Adam, who quickly sheathed Wilt into blush, his hair and red accents on his clothing glowing even more, as did his robotic arm. Wuchang's eyes widened as he recognized Adam's semblance activating. Moving on pure instinct, Wuchang dashed as fast as he could and pushed Sienna out of the way just as Adam drew his sword. Slash. Asterisk. An arc-shaped red energy slash was sent out that completely sliced through Wuchang, a splash of blood spilling across the wall and thrown as his body rolled to the ground, and Sienna, who had been pushed the ground, saw her pupils shrink with even Adam being caught off guard. RWBY stood where he was as his face turned pale. Brother. That cry drew Sonic's attention and distracted him briefly enough for the Egg Sphinx to tackle him to the ground, its claws surging with electricity again as Sonic felt his body being shocked while pinned. Well, that was unexpected, Adam mused, only to be tackled hard to the ground by a raging and screaming Sienna. Making sure to slice wilt and blush out of his hands, she quickly wrapped the chain of Cerberus whip around his neck and pinned him to the ground with her legs. "I'll kill you, Adam." Sienna screamed as she pulled hard on her chain with the intent of snapping his neck right then and there. Only for Adam to activate his arm blade and impale Sienna in her side, her pupils shrinking as she saw said blade breaking her aura and penetrating her skin, blood dripping out. RWBY would have joined her to avenge her brother, but Wei tackled him by the side to push him to the ground and hoisted him up for Yuma to fly in from behind and stab him in the back with his clawed weapon. Trifa also came in from the other side to impale him with her knife. Even RWBY snapped her water whip so hard to his jugular that it slashed it open, cutting his throat. With that, the mighty Ox Faunus fell to the ground, his life ending in the same room as his brother. Knowing he had to end this now, Sonic performed a spin dash to not only break out of the Egg by Echo's grip but even attack as he saw the opening in its right shoulder neck area and delivered a powerful homing attack. The Egg by Echo was knocked to the ground as the rest of the armor in that area was torn up, revealing all the circuitry in the neck before Sonic finished it with a spin dash in that specific spot, spinning his body so rapidly that he was like a blue energy blade that cut all the way through before snapping off the right arm and head of the dust-powered Badnik. Sonic then delivered a kick to send the head flying and crashing into the ceiling before bursting back into the throne room just as Sienna was kicked off. Adam didn't even get the chance to stand before he too was hit by a dash boost from Sonic to smash him into the wall as he was by Sienna's side, the woman desperately holding her wound to keep herself from bleeding out. He quickly took off his jacket and tied it around her waist as a makeshift bandage, but that's when he noticed the status of everyone else in the throne room. Wuchang and RWBY were both dead, as were all the guards and soldiers, with only 4 of Adam's goons still alive, albeit injured and exhausted. Adam removed himself from the wall, briefly falling to his hands and knees before Sonic appeared before him again, slamming him hard into the wall as he looked with an angry glare. "You just crossed a line, buddy," Sonic shouted. "Look who was too slow for once." Adam mocked, spitting in Sonic's face. "You could have saved all of them if you were here, but you weren't. Too busy playing with the doctor's toy. Oh, you're asking to get clobbered." Sonic was ready to beat him to a pulp right then and there. "Do it, and she dies." Turning around, the blue hedgehog found Trifa holding Sienna's head up as her knife was to her throat, while Yuma, Bai, and Wei were all at her side, their weapons out. "Looks like you got a choice to make." Adam grinned. "Take your vengeance against me, or save Sienna. Though you might think you're fast enough to do both, just know that she's probably lost a lot of blood by now. Are you fast enough to beat us all before she bleeds out and you get her to a hospital in time? The nearest one is at least several hundred miles away. And just so you know, every single one of them, and I, are prepared to fight to the death, and you'd better be too. So, are you fast enough to beat us and save her?" Are you, Sonic?" "Oh yeah, Adam's definitely been taking lessons from Eggman. He was trying to challenge Sonic, hurt his pride. But he wasn't wrong either. Sonic didn't see any hospitals during his run here, and Sienna needed one quick. He looked in each of the eyes of Adam's goons and saw that they were indeed willing to fight to the death, despite their injured and exhausted states. Sonic could take them all, Adam included, but he might not have the luxury of time if he could save Sienna. Of all things, her life came first. If he could save her, he should do that. He'll wipe the floor with Adam and his cult another time. Next time I see you, you're gonna wish I took you down here. Sonic warned Adam before he spun around rapidly, taking Adam with him as he gathered as much momentum as possible before throwing Adam hard into his quartet of fanatics. The sound of a bowling ball striking pins was heard upon contact before Sonic sped over to Sienna and picked her up. "Hang on." He sped out of the base, leaving only a trail of blue energy behind. His aura almost shattered completely from that attack as Adam struggled to pick himself up, but despite that, he couldn't help but chuckle. He won. Against the fastest thing alive, the Faunus, false idol, he won. Sonic sped out of Mount Naklov and into the volcanic desert landscape again, carrying the injured Sienna Khan in his arms, but he couldn't go as fast as before out of worry that he could make his injuries worse. He took out his scroll to look at the map on it. Crud. The nearest hospital's all the way in Mistral. He cursed aloud. Maybe if we head to a village that has a healer or something. As she was being carried, Sienna spotted a field of glowing red crystals on her right. Stop. Stop now, she stated, which caused Sonic to slow his run to a stop. Over there. She pointed to the crystals. Take me, there. Not sure why she wanted to go there, but she knew this territory, so he decided to trust her judgment and quickly sped over to the spot in question. They appeared on a flat piece of land that had a series of red fire dust crystals all sticking out of the ground. Once he stopped, Sienna stumbled out of his arms, but stood on both feet despite limping. Sonic watched in confusion as Sienna grabbed a crystal, her hand steaming and wincing in pain on contact as she yanked the crystal out. Hey, what are you? Sonic looked in shock as Sienna took off his jacket that had previously covering her wound and quickly pressed the scalding hot dust crystal onto her wound, causing her to scream in pain as she fell to her knees. Sonic zoomed over to her side as she dropped the crystal and saw how the wound had been seared shut just before she handed back his jacket, which had an even deeper shade of red from the blood soaked into it. The dust here, Sienna explained in between breaths, is naturally super hot once it's grown, because of the volcano. From the sound of it, this was a well-known fact for Sienna. Did she just use a raw dust crystal to cauterize her own wound? Shadow, Knuckles, and even Blaze would certainly approve of that. Dang, you're one hardcore lady. Sonic's comment was interrupted as Sienna let loose a scream of pure anguish and frustration so loud that it could be heard from miles around. That scream then turned into a cry as she fell on one hand and placed another over her face, tears falling to the ground below. They're dead, all of them, Wuchang, Hi-Bye, Sienna sobbed. They put their faith in me, and he killed them. The blue hedgehog looked in sympathy at that. He had come here with the hope of recruiting Sienna and her forces, but it seems all he was able to get was her. That had to be very rough for her. Being the leader, she likely knew all of the people Adam had killed. Oh, that good-for-nothing piece of garbage. He was gonna really make him pay the next time he sees him. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm in, Sienna said without hesitation, surprising Sonic. Sorry. You came here to try and recruit me. To get me to join your side, Golden Hero. Sienna stood up and looked at Sonic with a deathly serious expression. I'm in, so long as Eggman, Adam, and anyone else who works with them, pay for what they've done here. Sonic looked at her with an equally serious expression. You're gonna be working with humans, including those from Atlas. Heck, one of my closest friends is Weiss Schnee. But she's not like her dad. That last part didn't sit well with Sienna. But regardless, does Blake know this? They're teammates, so yeah. Sonic confirmed. Teammates, huh? How did that happen? Well, she'll just have to ask Blake personally. Fine. Sienna accepted, much to Sonic's relief. This isn't how I wanted it, but welcome aboard. He offered her his hand, which she accepted. Come on. He picked her back up. Let's get you to a hospital. No. She stopped him before he could speed off. There's a number of villages here in Mistral under my protection, all Faunus populated. One's got a place that can treat my injuries. I also need to spread the word here of what Adam has done before he can spread his own lies. I will not abandon my people to him. Fair enough. Sonic understood as he sped away from the area with the now former leader of the White Fang in his arms. Once we're done, I got one more stop to make. Sienna continued. Aside from my sect, there is another tribe of warriors that looks after some villages in Mistral too. They called themselves the Bronwyns. That caused Sonic to stop in his tracks, much to Sienna's concern. Bronwyn, as in Raven Bronwyn, you know her? Sienna questioned. I'm friends with her daughter. Sonic said, causing Sienna to look in surprise. How do you know her? She's one of the few humans that I can respect. She explained. Our factions have something of a non-aggression pact between our territories. Do you know where she is? Sonic asked. Not her specifically, but I know what villages are under her protection. Sienna continued. Figured we could at least get a message sent out so that she knows about Adam too. What's he gotta do with this? Sonic questioned. Because before he joined me, Adam was originally part of Raven's tribe. Sienna revealed. Sonic looked very serious at that before he resumed his run with his new ally in his arms. Okay, we seriously gotta compare notes. Angel Island. Raven and Kiro just stared at each other, neither saying a word to each other, almost like one was waiting for the other to start. It was such a surreal feeling, as they actually saw each other only recently, at the Battle of Beacon, but that was only a few seconds before she left again. Other than that, it's been years since they've so much as spoken to each other. How did you even find this place? Kiro questioned. You do know how my semblance works, right? Raven wasn't about to tell him that she had one of her own spying on the city of Mistral, trying to find out what was going on with Malachite and why she had one of her villages attacked. So, you're just checking up on me? Kiro questioned spitefully. Don't I feel lucky? Why are you alone, Kiro? Raven questioned. Where are your nieces? Kiro looked away with a scowl, an expression that his sister read like a book. Let me guess, they found out that Ozpin wasn't really the paragon of virtue you and your little cult made him out to be and wanted to walk away. But you didn't take that very well, so you got into a fight, and they ended up walking out on you. Did I miss anything? You had something to do with that, didn't you? Kiro questioned. You were at Beacon, keeping an eye out to make sure you didn't get mine or Summer's kid killed. Raven glared, which only seemed to make Kiro angry as he stood up, but Raven wasn't done. I had nothing to do with any of that. From the looks of things, those aliens saw through Ozpin on their own. Good. Nice to know that they've got brains up there, and are teaching the kids to actually use theirs. Oh, you think you're so smart, don't you? Kiro went right up to her face. Think you're untouchable? Is that what Xian and the rest of those villages think of their so-called guardian? Yeah, I know what you've been up to. You and the rest of the tribe run a little protection racket to all those villages that can't afford real huntsmen. Would you rather those villages be left to die? Raven questioned. You know most huntsmen only do what they do to get paid. Not everyone is like Summer, fighting out of the goodness of their hearts. And if you knew what's going on there, why haven't you or Ozpin done anything? Kiro scoffed. Believe it or not, you actually made Lionheart's job a bit easier. Okay, yeah, you're right that not every huntsman is pure and noble. Hell, some guys have turned down job offers because they don't pay enough. So, it's nice to know that someone is looking out for them. It's just too bad that you care about a bunch of complete strangers more than your own daughter. Looked in the mirror, Kiro. Who left those girls to keep working for Ozpin? Raven argued. I didn't leave. You did. He pointed to her chest, his face less than an inch from hers. And only after you tried to kidnap a baby. Your baby. I would have saved her. Raven pushed his hand away. You would have thrown her to the wolves if it meant keeping Salem away for another couple of months or so. Hell, that's what you've been doing. With both Yang and RWBY. They were at Beacon. Kiro exclaimed. My point exactly. Raven narrowed her eyes. RWBY was always going to be pulled into the war, and you know it. All because of those damn eyes of hers. She might be Summer's daughter, but she's not her mother. Stop trying to make her like that. Oh, well, since you care so much about RWBY, I'm surprised you didn't try to kidnap her too and do the same with Yang again. Kiro shouted. You've been watching over them for years. Pretty sure you had more than one chance to snatch M. Yang would have been one thing, but you know as well as I did, that if I took RWBY too, you and Ironwood would have burned half of Mistral to get her back. Raven exclaimed. No, we wouldn't. Kiro pushed her back. We're not the bad guys. Listen to yourself. You sound just like. He stopped himself at the last minute, his eyes briefly widening when he realized what he was about to say. Sound like whom? Raven responded. Come on. Finish it. Sound like whom? She glared, but Kiro said nothing as he looked away. You were going to say, Yang, weren't you? Once again, he said nothing, but that all but confirmed it for his sister. I see, that's why she's not with you anymore. You compared to her to me, said she sounded like me, and that pushed a button. He didn't turn to face her. He wouldn't give Raven the satisfaction of seeing the devastated and frustrated look on his face. The look of betrayal and heartbreak on Yang's face, and the words she said to him were permanently etched into his mind. I never want to see you again. I'm done with you. You can do whatever the hell you want, I don't care anymore. But if you ever try anything to hurt or endanger RWBY, I will kill you. As far as I'm concerned, she's the only family I got left. And I won't let you or anyone else take that away, no matter what your reasons are. He tried so hard not to cry, but it was nearly impossible. How could Yang think that? How could she think that he would deliberately endanger RWBY? How could she think that he loved Yang any less than her sister? Even though she couldn't see his face, Raven could tell from his body language that Kiro was devastated over their fallout. Her own expression softened. Despite the animosity between her and Kiro, this isn't what she wanted for their family. They don't know about your semblance, do they? She asked in a softer manner. Kiro tried to push down all his warring emotions. You know that's complicated. Oh, no it's not. Raven began. Hey girls, I'm sorry I'm not as home as often I'd like to be, but the truth is that I have a semblance that's hard for me to control and I'm worried that I might accidentally hurt you. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. There, you see. She clapped her hands once for emphasis. Did I make any mention of Ozpin or Salem? No, I didn't. Probably would have made things way easier than having your kids assume that you don't want to spend any time with them. As much as Kiro didn't want to admit it, Raven did have a point there. Maybe things could have been a bit smoother if he told RWBY and Yang about his misfortune and that it was one of the reasons why he had to keep his distance. But he didn't want them to worry, or worse to think. Are you afraid that they'll think you're cursed? She questioned, almost like she was reading his mind. That they won't want anything to do with you. That finally caused Kiro to turn around to Raven. Summer didn't feel that way. She loved you despite your misfortune. Even after you broke it off with her, she still loved you. RWBY might not be your kid, but I can tell that you think of her like that. So be straight with me, Kiro. Do you want her and Yang involved with Salem? Don't give me any roundabouts like Ozpin would, it's a simple yes or no question. Do you want RWBY and Yang involved with Salem? Of course not. He yelled at the top of his lungs, so much that all the birds in the trees flew away. But you probably don't believe me, do you? I want to. Raven said, not backing away from his outburst. So, I'm going to give you the chance to prove it. Swiftly drawing Omen, Raven brought her sword down and opened a red portal in front of both of them, much to Kiro's surprise. I didn't come here to fight with you, Kiro. I came here to help you convince me to get the girls to leave. She revealed. What? Kiro questioned in genuine shock. Ozpin's dead, and we don't know when he's coming back. Raven began. It might not be within our lifetime even. And you don't owe him anything. We have a chance to start things over. And best of all, someone else is looking to take the fight to Salem and, from what I've seen, might actually have the means to stop her. Permanently. And if he can do that, then good for him. Hell, I'll throw the blue guy a damn parade. But we don't have to get involved in that, and neither do the girls. You want to set things right with them. Come with me. Help me convince them to get out of this, that they can live a normal life without worrying about fighting monsters or being hunted by psychopaths, where they believe that even the tiniest mistake will result in people dying. We can even protect them if any of Salem's goons happen to stumble on them, and the tribe will be more than happy to take them in. I'm giving you a chance to make things right with them, to start over and, maybe you and I can too. She offered him her hand. Kiro, please. He could tell from her eyes that she was being serious about this. She was really making an offer to step out of the fight and even made amends with the girls. Even expressing hope that they would be able to mend things themselves. Kiro almost found himself reaching out to her and accepting it, but stopped when he analyzed her wording and noticed something odd in what she said. What about you? You say you're giving me a chance to make things right with Yang and RWBY and wanting for us to bury the hatchet, but you're not saying you want to make things right with them. With her, Kiro said, which only caused Raven's eyes to widen. Yang has been searching for you her whole life. Hell, she almost got herself and her sister killed one time trying to find you. And if you've been watching them all this time, you know that's true. You could have gone to her at any point you wanted, but you didn't. You've had years of opportunities to connect with her, but you didn't. Why? And don't say it's because of Ozpin, because you know that's not the real reason. She looked away, but he could read her expression like a book. Are you really that afraid of being a mother? I'm not the kind of mother she wants. Why not let her decide that? Kiro questioned. Or are you afraid that she'd end up like Taurus? Raven gasped at that. Try not to act so surprised. I've seen what he can do. His fighting style has you written all over it. You trained him, maybe even raised him. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if you had a connection to him with your semblance. Are you so afraid that she'd turn out like him even if you spend 5 minutes with her? Now it was Raven's turn to look away and not give an answer. It was true, she had been watching Yang since she was a child, even RWBY too. And as much as she wanted to reach out to both of them, she couldn't. She was no Summer. Yang deserved better. They both did. Kiro sighed in disappointment. Thanks for the offer, but if I do bury the hatchet with them, I'll do it myself. I don't need you for that. Go back to your villages, your tribe, make old Papa Abartic proud. That earned a hard glare from Raven. And who was it that protected you from all his beatings, only to suffer them with you? Who stuck by your side when the old tribe gave you nothing but hate? Who was it that killed him after I returned there along with everyone else who supported him? Go ahead and say what you want about the tribe now, you have to admit that it's a million times better than the horde of murderers that he led. And say what you want about me being a neglectful mother, but can we both at least be glad that Yang will never know her grandfather? Okay fine, you got me there. He accepted. With that, Raven turned around and walked into the portal, which closed promptly after. The second his twin sister was gone, a heavy silence filled the air as Kiro rubbed his hand down his face, his heart filled with all kinds of mixed emotions. How much of that did you all hear? Kiro asked aloud. Cream, Cheese, Shade, Big, Froggy, Gemerald, and Maria had all stepped out from the trees, revealing themselves. All of it, Shade answered. She had a feeling Kiro wanted to be alone for something and this turned out to be the case. She saw the questionable look on his face. A friend of mine entrusted the safety of the Master Emerald to me. And I take my job very seriously. Obviously. Kiro noted. Was that really your sister? Cream asked with worry. Yep. Kiro answered, popping the P at the end. And correct me if I misheard, but did you basically confirm that your father was Abartic Bronwyn? Maria questioned. Also known as Abartic the Black-Blooded. Yeah, he confirmed with shame, looking away. Honestly, the only good thing Raven did after leaving was kill their father. Good riddance. Something they both could agree on. Who is Abartic? Big asked. A very bad guy. Maria answered. He was a plague to all of Mistral when he was alive. Very few huntsmen could ever fight him and live to tell the tale. I was one of them. You were a huntress. Kiro looked to the old lady in surprise. Was my old man the one who took your eyes? No. Somebody else did. Maria answered grimly. But aside from that fight, Abartic was the most dangerous foe I'd ever thought. More than once I thought I was gonna die. I just barely escaped. In your argument with your sister, you mentioned Sonic, as well as another individual that he may currently be fighting. Salem. Gemerald noted, which caused Kiro to look serious. What exactly is happening here? So, you are friends with him? Kiro asked. Mr. Sonic is one of the nicest people I ever met. Cream beamed. He's always going on these incredible adventures fighting bad guys and saving the day. Chow chow. Cheese also beamed. And I have a feeling that his fight against this Salem is also connected to the reason Angel Island happened to get transported to this place. Shade assumed. If at all possible, let's talk. We'd like to know what's going on here. Kiro put his hand on his face. The last thing he wanted was more people getting involved in this war against Salem. And being stuck here with friends of Sonic didn't seem very appealing to him. But, at the same time, he knew this group of people was innocent, not directly involved in the ongoing tension between Ozpin's circle and Sonic's comrades, nor was it their fault that they got transported to Remnant. They were innocent and naturally curious as to what was going on, not to mention that they pretty much heard the whole argument between him and Raven and all the name drops involved, including his family. That aside, that Master Emerald that kept this whole island afloat, if it was anything like those Chaos Emeralds that turned Sonic into his Golden God mode, it might be best that he stays on the island for the time being, if only to keep Salem from getting her hands on it if she finds out. As much as he wanted to go out and find RWBY and Yang, he had a feeling he might only make things worse with how Yang left it, but if anything came out from that argument, it seems that his nieces were sticking close to Sonic and his friends, who have proven strong enough to fight and protect them for the immediate future, and it sounded like that even Raven was keeping an eye on the girls from a distance. He hated the idea of leaving his nieces alone, but at the very least, they were safe. RWBY, Yang, I promise I'll come and find you. Just not yet, but please, be safe. Ironically, he was now entrusting the safety of his nieces with two people that he really couldn't stand right now. But it was still better than nothing. Alright, how about this, Kiro offered to the group in front of him. You tell me everything about Sonic and all the stuff he's done, and I'll tell you what I know about what's going on here. Deal. Shade nodded. Sounds fair. Welcome to Angel Island, Mr. Kiro. Cream said with a smile. Just Kiro, he said, only to be surprised as he was suddenly scooped up into a hug by Big. It's always nice to make new friends. Big said. Right, Froggy. Ribbit. Froggy croaked as Big held Kiro tightly. Too tightly. Okay, seriously, can't breathe, the man winced before Big let go. Maria smiled and shook her head. Just when she thought she'd seen everything, life had a new way to surprise her. Well, this should be interesting. Menagerie. Hot, 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 hot. Sun shouted as he ran to avoid the fire shot at him by two white taijutsu heads, only to run in front of the other two that looked ready to snap at him. Though Giru quickly came in to swing his axe and knock them both back. However, they quickly recovered as all four white heads circled around the two and prepared their conjoined fire breath. Fortunately, Sun used his semblance to create a quartet of glowing clones of himself to grab himself and Gira from below and threw them up and away from the inferno that destroyed the clones. Sun yelled in pain as his own aura flashed while he and Gira landed hard on the ground. Sun. Gira helped him up. My clones, when they take damage, I do too. Sun winced as he held his side, but they were forced to dodge again as the four white taijutsu heads unleashed their fire breath at him once again. On the other side of the massive mutated taijutsu, Vector ran straight for the four black heads, swiftly moving and dodging the fireballs that each head shot at him. The middle right black head shot itself at him with its fangs first, but Vector pulled back his fist to deliver a powerful punch to dislocate its whole jaw and knock it back. But this still left him open for two left black heads to come at him at the same time to wrap around him. Though Vector's strength was enough to keep them at bay for the most part, he was pushed up from the ground somewhat and put directly in the path of the far right black head, which had its mouth open and ready to unleash a stream of fire. Oh boy, Vector winced, knowing this was going to hurt. However, a cyclone of wind and fire struck the head from above and forced it to misfire its own fire breath before a swirl of leaves and wind appeared where Vector was to further push the heads away, followed by a series of rapid slashes as the crocodile touched down. Espio happened to land in front of him as he now dual-wielded Cyclone and Inferno. Hey, aren't those the same fancy daggers the Albane brothers had? Vector asked. They won't be needing them while incarcerated. Espio replied before smirking as he flashed his newly acquired weapons. Besides, they were too good to waste. They'd better serve a more noble wielder, wouldn't you agree? Vector smirked back to his teammates. Go to town with them, buddy. At the same time, a dash of purple and black came at the white heads to rapidly slice them all and give Sun and Gira a moment of reprieve before Blake appeared before them. Gamble shroud out as she glared at the eight-headed taijutsu, all eight of its heads hissing and snarling before the white heads went straight for the ground to burrow underneath, pulling the black heads with it. Dad, son, she was at her father with worry. We're okay, Blake, he assured his daughter, causing her to smile. How the heck can taijutsu have 8 heads? Sun questioned. And since when do they breathe fire? The fire likely comes from natural dust deposits underground. Espio assumed as he and Vector joined them. Its 8 heads are also a likely mutation from the Chaos Emerald. Wait, Blake thought of something. Taijutsu aren't known to naturally wield dust. If the Chaos Emerald is keeping it all together, should we take it out? It might fall apart. Good thinking, Vector said. But that thing is slippery and much faster for its size. We need a way to hold it still. First we must draw that Yamata no Orochi back to the surface. Espio decreed. Yamawa, Sun questioned. Yamata no Orochi. It is the name of beast of myth from our world. Espio explained. An 8-headed serpent dragon. That creature had 8 heads and could breathe fire, so it seemed to fit. Your world is weird, Sun pointed out. And yours isn't. Espio replied with a raised eyebrow. The ground then began to shake. Guys, Blake alerted everyone as all 5 of them circled up with their backs to each other, whatever weapons they wielded were at the ready. Keep your eyes peeled. It could come up from anywhere. Gira warned. All of them looked serious, their eyes darting in every direction, ensuring that there were no blind spots as the ground underneath them continued to shake and quake. After a tense minute of shaking, it all stopped, and nobody dared to move an inch or even speak. "Think it's gone?" Sun asked hopefully, only for the ground under them to explode in a flurry of fire, sending all of them high up and into the air. "You just had to say something," Blake scolded. "Sorry." Sun apologized as they all began to fall, and all 8 heads of the Yamata no Orochi emerged from the hole. But Vector also noticed a glowing purple light at the center of the crater and an idea came to him. "Espio, push me straight down. I'm going for the emerald," Vector called out. "Everyone else, keep the heads busy." "Got it." Espio lunged Cyclone forward to send a tornado-like attack straight at Vector to further push him down. One black head tried to intercept him, but he positioned his body like a professional diver, all while opening his mouth, to fall straight forward with the extra boost provided by Espio. Vector bit down and tore through the black head, which led to the dust inside that one's neck to explode as Vector fell into the hole. The others fell but recovered as best as they could to engage the 7 remaining heads as they lunged at them. Kiro lost his axe but caught onto one white head that tried to bite at him. He dug his claws into its side and tried to position himself on top to avoid being blasted by fire. Blake used her semblance to push herself up and into the path of a white head that was about to let loose a fireball at her, but she used her semblance again to create a shadow clone and launch herself higher to avoid the fire blast before throwing out Gamble Shroud. The sickle blade attached to the ribbon was able to strike the eye of the white head before Blake swung herself directly behind it and used her semblance again to dash herself straight for the neck area, pulling back the cleaver sheath of her weapon before slicing off the head completely. Espio was about to be attacked by a black and white head from both sides while falling. Both heads shot a fireball at him, but Espio used his leaf swirl technique to shield himself from the fireballs and then used a flaming whirlwind from Cyclone and Inferno to boost himself straight up before using the same method to shoot himself at the white head, where he proceeded to pierce its left eye with Cyclone while using Inferno to shoot fireballs and keep the black head at bay. He then activated Cyclone to shoot a whirlwind through the eye and pierce out the back of the white head before slicing to completely tear it apart. Sun had taken out RWBY Bang and Jingu Bang in its nunchaku form. Using a clone to catch and launch himself, he went for a black head that was about to bite at him, but Sun flailed his weapon into its jaw to snap it back before throwing out his weapon again to hook around its neck before swinging himself up on the back of its head. He wrapped his legs around the neck to keep himself on before repeatedly slamming and firing RWBY Bang and Jingu Bang to damage the head as much as possible. The Yamata no Orochi Grim roared and snarled with its remaining heads as its whole body broke out from the ground, revealing Vector as he used one hand to hold onto the bone armor of its mane, while he tried to reach with his other to grab the purple Chaos Emerald and wrench it free. But the second he touched the gemstone, it almost felt like the Yamato no Orochi Grim felt that exact moment before it rolled itself on the ground to shake Vector off. This ended up sending Espio, Blake, Gira, and Sun flying and crashing hard on the ground, but Vector still held on with all his might even as the multi-headed monster continued to roll and shake him off. "Come on. Hold still, you slippery little," Vector groaned. But when it stopped rolling, he looked up to see all 5 of its remaining heads looking directly at him, flames at the back of their throats as they prepared to overwhelm him with literal fire power. Uh-oh. Everyone looked in wide-eyed shock as they saw this. Espio was the first to dash and zoom his way there, but Gira noticed his axe on the ground. He quickly ran to grab it. Vector. He threw the axe like a javelin as it soared through the air, but it wouldn't reach him in time as the 5 taijutsu heads unleashed their fire breath onto the crocodile. Fortunately, Espio did make it on time as he jumped and sliced Cyclone and Inferno forward, sending an X-shaped double wave of fire and wind to intercept the blasts. This caused an explosion that blew Espio back just as the axe flew closer. "Finish it," Espio called to his leader. Vector saw the incoming axe and nodded. With the heads just about to recover, Vector acted quickly as he raised his hand to catch the axe. He gripped it with both hands as the 5 heads looked ready to unleash another conjoined fire attack, only for the crocodile to give a mighty yell as he swung the axe down with all his strength, slicing through much of the bone armor and cleaving the purple Chaos Emerald out, sending it flying up into the air. He then jumped just as the Yamata no Orochi's remaining heads unleashed their fire attack. But he had already jumped out of the way, grabbing the emerald, as the fireball struck the now exposed insides of the multi-headed monster, which were lined with fire dust. Boom! Asterisk. A massive explosion all but destroyed the monstrous grim. The shockwave blew everyone back slightly and sent the airborne vector crashing to the ground. Any intact pieces of the monster were blown across the area, but quickly disintegrated before they even touched the ground, all while the crocodile braced himself for a hard landing as a large fire burned behind him. With that, the Yamata no Orochi Grim was no more. Espio had recovered enough that he ran to check on his leader and friend, with Blake, Gira, and Sun right beside him. When they all came to Vector, the crocodile was slightly smoking as he used the axe Gira had tossed to him to prop himself up with one hand, before smiling as he revealed the purple Chaos Emerald in the other. Everyone smiled with relief as they allowed themselves to accept their victory. "Nice work, team," Vector said before handing his axe back to Gira. But the chieftain shook his head with a smile. "Keep it. You wield it better than I do." Vector looked to the axe before nodding. "Thanks. Probably could give it a few tweaks, but I think this will come in handy." "Alright, we did it." Sun celebrated as he pulled everyone into a hug. "We got the Chaos Emerald. We won. Time to celebrate." "Not yet." Blake shook her head as she became serious. "We need to get home, now." "Blake, what's going on?" Gira asked. "The White Fang has been stalking you and Mom." Blake revealed much to Gira and Sun's surprise, with Vector looking to Espio, who just nodded in confirmation. "Adam's planning something here, and I intend to find out what it is." Mistral, Mount Naklov. With their auras recovering, Gui, Yuma, Tifa, and Bai dragged the bodies of all the White Fang agents outside, both their own and those that were under Sienna's command, and threw them onto a large burning pier to be burned. This included Haibai and Wuchang. As the bodies of their fallen comrades and enemies succumbed to the flames, the quartet walked back inside. They returned to the throne room to see Adam sitting on the newly acquired throne with a smirk as he marveled at his new robotic arm. "Do any of you know how my semblance, Moonslice, works?" "Yes, High Leader," Yuma answered. "You absorb the energy from your opponents, strikes into your sword, which you can then redistribute as an attack." "Correct, but it does not apply to just my sword," Adam answered. "It can apply to any inanimate object that I hold. Whether it be a knife, a staff, a shield even, or even something simple like a rock. But I always found it to be most effective with blades, it gives it extra cutting power. But I only just recently found out that it can apply to my prosthetic too." He showed off his robotic arm, as his followers listened closely. And with this, he extended the arm blade from his mechanical arm. "I'd say I've developed twice the cutting edges before. I really should be thanking Raven. Her attempt at mercy has only helped me further my cause. Glad you're enjoying the gift I gave you." Everyone looked in surprise as a small port opened on the forearm of Adam's prosthetic, revealing a small, holographic form of none other than Eggman himself. "But I don't give anything for free. I need to know for sure if it's worth the trouble," Eggman stated. "Doctor, I was just about to call you." Adam smirked. "Oh, it's done. Sienna Khan is dead," Adam revealed. "I was just about to spread the word that Sonic was the one who killed her, turned the Faunus population against their precious, golden hero." He spoke that last part with such venom. "So, I'd say that your gift was well worth the effort." "Sienna Khan is dead, you say?" Eggman clicked his tongue. "Funny, that's not what Lionheart told me." "Excuse me?" Adam questioned. He just got a message from Sonic himself. Turns out, Sienna Khan is not only very much alive, but she's with Sonic right now. Eggman revealed much to the shock of Adam, who, as we speak, were running around through Mistral's White Fang territory to spread the word of your failed attempt at a coup. Adam was now starting to growl. "So not only is the target that you said you would kill still alive, she is now helping to rally an army for Sonic. Oh, and I also got an alert of my egg by Akko coming offline, Sonic's handiwork no doubt." "What choice did I have?" Adam exclaimed. "By the time I arrived, he was already here, trying to recruit Sienna." "What choice did you have? You could have waited for him to leave, then killed her and frame him." "It's not rocket science," Eggman yelled. "But just like Cinder, you got delusional over a little sample taste of power, and screwed yourself and the rest of us over. Your former protege, Belladonna, is already in Menagerie. With her and Khan together, all of the Faunus are now gonna do exactly what we wanted to avoid, and that's rally behind their golden hero. You. Adam stood up from his throne in a growl. Don't you dare bite back at me, not when I can call up Metal Sonic right now and send him your way to rip off more than just your arm. Eggman threatened, which only caused him to back down. If you want to have any chance of salvaging this, then go to Menagerie right now. Cut off the Belladonnas before they can link up with Sonic. I already sent Ilia, Adam muttered. Go yourself. And take your little pack with you. Eggman ordered. Fail me again and I will send Metal Sonic to take that fancy new arm of yours back. You're on my leash now, so do what you're told. With that command, Eggman's holographic form cut off, leaving the throne room deathly silent as Adam's followers could only look at their leader with concern. Adam's whole body shook with anger before he quickly drew Wilt and gave a frustrated yell as he cut down the throne. Prep a ship. We're moving to Menagerie as soon as we're ready. Adam ordered as he proceeded to walk away. But Adam, our airship isn't fast, I tried to tell him. It would take a day or two to even reach. Do as I say, Adam yelled before he stormed out. A leash, Gwei scoffed. Why are we even entertaining that human? He's provided us with gifts. Gifts that not even Atlas could dream of. Trifa argued. At what cost? Gwei countered. Are we really free now? Or did we just trade one slaver for another? You want to pick a fight with the guy who has more power and less self-control than Atlas? Bai questioned. That's enough. Yuma broke it off. Our high leader has spoken. I'm sure this is all just a ploy to gain more power before we ultimately slay the human and take his empire for ourselves. I trust Adam, and the rest of you should too. Of course. Bai nodded. Right. Trifa nodded too. I trust Adam, it's Eggman that I'm not so sure of. Gwei confessed. Ilia rode in a small airborne vessel, one that resembled something of a pod to a hoverbike. It was simple to operate, not too different from a motorcycle, and moved fast as the chameleon girl was covered by the entire hull with a window in front of her to provide visibility. She let her ship glide across the water before reaching her destination. Making sure to avoid any suspicion, she had guided her pod to a much less populated beach, one that was filled with all kinds of jagged rocks poking out of the shallow water. It was a place that most Faunus never visited and allowed the perfect place to mask her entrance. Once she had found a secluded hiding spot, Ilia deactivated her vehicle as the pod top opened up and she sat up, allowing her to breathe the salty sea air as she saw the shores of Menagerie for the first time in years. I'm coming, Blake. I hope you're ready, Ilia said. Though the truth was, Blake, unbeknownst to her, was more than ready for a fight. Deep in her core, Ilia was not. Pyramid Siege. Pyramid Base, once the headquarters to Dr. Eggman, only to have been abandoned by the Mad Doctor a long time ago, and now currently residing in the middle of the wastelands of Vacuo on the world of Remnant. And it no longer appeared to be abandoned as several badniks appeared to be patrolling the area around the large pyramid-like structure, with a large majority of them centered around the walled-off courtyard at the front of the pyramid. Many of these badniks all appeared to be more obsolete units, however, such as E-1000s, Buzz Bombers, and Egg Pawns, though there also appeared to be 2 Egg Hammers guarding the main entrance. But as these robots continued to march across the area, none of them seemed to notice a certain white bat flying high over the pyramid, who had her scroll converted into her eyepiece spyware to scan the structure before flying to regroup with everyone else. Sitting behind a sand dune a short distance away from the pyramid were Shadow, Omega, Teams JNPR and CFVY, as well as Cardin. Rouge then arrived on the scene swiftly. Well, the Black Hedgehog wondered. A small detachment is just outside the front gate. Rouge began. Aside from 2 Egg Hammers, that shouldn't be too much trouble, but I do think there's more inside. But what's odd is that a lot of these units all look really old. Some are even patched up together with spare parts. More than likely, whoever is currently occupying the base is utilizing the Doctor's leftovers. Shadow assumed. Any change to the architecture? Omega inquired. Nothing too extreme. We should be able to navigate just fine. Rouge answered as she linked her eyepiece's data to the scrolls of everyone else in the group, having scanned the pyramid with her brief scouting. But without knowing who else may be occupying that base and what they're capable of, we're still going in blind. Ren said. No offense, Fox. None taken. The blind former student of Beacon assured. You think there might be some kind of trap inside? Kira asked Rouge. Eggman did leave some booby traps last time he was here, but the new tenants may have put some of their own in. Rouge answered. Alright, besides the front door, are there any other points of entry? Coco asked. Yeah, two. Rouge answered, converting her eyepiece into its regular scroll from and pulled up the map of the base. We got one on the east side near the bottom, and one around the north at the top. But if we follow the map, we should be able to reach the control room from either point, and hopefully find a functioning computer to access the egg net. We're too big a group to sneak in through stealth. John said. Coco, how good is your team when it comes to stealth? Fox is the quietest, so he can do stealth just fine. Coco answered to her fellow team leader. Velvet and I can be quiet, but we're not masters of the art of stealth. And Yatsuhashi. Yes, stealth is not my strong suit. The tall and large muscular young man noted. What of your semblances? Weapons? Shadow questioned to Team CFVY as well as Cardin, wanting to know what their capabilities were and how they can best be used in this situation. I can use my aura to enhance the effects and power of dust. It works well with my beloved Janduya, my handbag mini-gun. Coco answered. Such an ability can be used in conjunction with the dust weapons I've installed in my chassis. Omega said. You will utilize your semblance on me so that I may further obliterate our enemies. Coco smirked as she tipped her sunglasses to him. I like your style, Tin Man. My semblance lets me copy a person's fighting style. Velvet said. I can't copy semblances, though. She then pulled out her camera. Anisidora lets me make hard-like copies of weapons that I can take pictures with, but each one can only be used once before I need to take another picture again. Seems like your power and weapon can be used in perfect conjunction, not bad. Rouge smiled, clearly impressed, causing Velvet to blush with a smile of her own. I wield sharp retribution. Fox showed off his curved sword. It's nothing special, other than how wicked sharp it is. He smirked. But my semblance is telepathy. I can communicate with everyone around me in a certain range like we were calling each other. What's the range? Shadow questioned. Do you have any other limits? This semblance sounds like it could be useful, but he needed to know what it could do before getting his hopes up. My max range is 100 meters, and I can communicate with a dozen people at once. Fox answered. But the longer I keep it open and the more people I link, the greater the strain on my aura, so I can't keep it open forever. Understood. Shadow nodded. This telepathy had its drawbacks certainly, but it could still certainly be useful. In such a big group, communication would be essential. Best to use our scrolls and comms for the time being. Save your semblance for when our technology should fail. He instructed, to which Fox nodded. My weapon is Fulcrum. Yatsuhashi drew his large sword. It's pretty straightforward to with no extra features. And my semblance allows me to erase memories. That drew Shadow's attention in particular. But I use it sparingly, only when I have to. I don't need physical contact, but it does help. Are the effects permanent? Shadow inquired. Only those that aren't particularly important, like the colors of a tree you recently passed. Yatsuhashi explained. Memories that do hold great importance to you are only temporarily nullified before they return. But it's also incredibly draining, so I've learned not to become too reliant on it. Shadow nodded with a serious expression while Rouge looked at him with concern. No doubt this reminded Shadow of his own time with amnesia. And you? John looked to Cardin, who shifted slightly under John's gaze. While it wasn't necessarily a glare or anything, Cardin could tell that it was indeed hard. My weapon, the Executioner, is just a simple mace. He showed it to everyone. But my semblance is called Cauterize. My physical strength grows whenever I feel heat. Put a fire in front of me and I get pretty strong. So, being in a desert must be advantageous for you. Kira noted. It's helped, yeah. Cardin nodded. But I can still be hurt by flames and still get heat stroke, so I'm not immune to heat or anything. Still, could be useful. Nora commented as this reminded her of her own semblance, only it seemed a bit more convenient and easier to handle in comparison. Not that she had any trouble with her own power or anything, but constantly getting electrocuted would certainly damage her aura, as opposed to something passive like standing in a hot day. Okay, I think I might have an idea. John said for everyone. Shadow and Omega, you guys are gonna take Team CVFY and storm the front gate. Make as much noise as possible and take down all the guards you can. Force whoever's inside to come out themselves. And while they're focused on you, the rest of us are going to sneak in through the entry points Rouge showed us. Rouge, you'll take Ren and Nora through that spot on the top while Pyrrha, Cardin, and I go in through the spot on the bottom. We'll sneak our way through and meet at the control room. That's actually a really good plan. Coco noted before smiling. I'm impressed, John. Have the most powerful and most destructive forces engage the enemy and force the unknown to become known, while also utilizing your own resources that are more familiar to you for infiltration. Omega summarized. All personnel would be best assigned to tasks they are most capable of. Orders approved, John Ark. Yes, well done, John. Pyrrha smiled. Thanks guys. The blonde smiled at the praise and even caught a nod from Shadow, showing he agreed with this plan. Then you'll move as close as you can and be prepared to enter on our mark. The black hedgehog instructed before looking to Fox. But do not move in until enemy reinforcements leave the pyramid. Well, you heard the man. Let's move, Rouge said before the group split up and made their way to their respective spots. And yet, they seemed unaware that they were currently being watched. Laying flat on a large rock some distance away, the same individual who had been following them from the main city of Vacuo had observed them all through a scope on her weapon. After seeing the group split up, she made her way closer to the pyramid too. The front courtyard of Pyramid Base seemed quiet and peaceful as the badniks went along their programmed patrol, with nothing particularly interesting happening to warrant their attention. But that all changed in heartbeat as the gate on the front wall was blown open, alerting all the robots as Coco and Omega both stepped through the smoke first, the former wielding her Jinjuja in its Gatling gun form. Knock, knock, Coco called out as she and Omega opened fire with their respective guns, tearing through all the frontmost badniks like they were nothing. Every badnik was then alerted to their presence as those patrolling the general area were quickly alerted and went to deal with the intruders. Only for a blur of red to shoot out in between Coco and Omega as it dashed its way through the horde of robots, carving through them like a hot knife through butter with multiple rapid slashes. Shadow stepped past all the pack of ground-based badniks, Orondite hanging out as an explosion ripped through the pack, sending several of the surviving badniks flying. Suddenly, the pillars along the pathway of the courtyard that led straight to the pyramid activated as large turret guns appeared and opened fire on Shadow, who teleported to avoid the gunshots as he reappeared behind one pillar to cut it down with his sword. Yatsuhashi, Velvet, and Fox all ran past Coco and Omega as they opened fire on the incoming aerial buzz bombers. Velvet quickly took out Anisidora and created a hardlight copy of Jinjua to open fire and take out the closest pillar turrets and give her own teammates a chance to split up on the left and right and take down the pillar turrets further away. Yatsuhashi sliced with fulcrum to not only cut down one pillar but even kicked it to start a literal domino effect to push all the pillars on the left side of the path down onto each other. Fox, on the other hand, used his own agility and sword to climb his way to the top of one pillar on the right side of the path and grabbed one active turret and forced it to fire on those in front of him before finally slicing it off with sharp retribution. Observation. You and your coordinate with ruthless efficiency. Omega complimented to Coco. You will make excellent additions in the campaign against the Eggman Empire. Oh, we're just getting started. Coco smirked as she, Omega, and Velvet went in deeper to deal with the remaining badniks. All while Shadow had made his way in front of the main gate and found himself facing the two egg hammers guarding it, each one wielding their respective mallets as the black hedgehog held a Rondite out and pointed his sword at them before wordlessly charging forward. The ongoing destruction could be seen on the monitor in the Pyramid Base's control room, something that an anthropomorphic jackal with black fur and yellow eyes noticed as he sat casually on his chair with his feet up on the console. This jackal had black gloves, white cloth wrapped around his arms and legs and had an orange beret on his head. Oh, the jackal looked amused as he saw the chaos unfolding outside. Looks like got company. He called to his teammates who were currently scattered in the control room, each appearing to minding their own business. Including the one with the orange beret, there were 5 in total, and all of them had the same black fur and yellow eyes. One had beige gloves and boots and a red bandana, along with a sash that had multiple kunai stored in it, including one he toyed with in his hands, as well as a sheathed katana. Another had a green headband and had a slight scar over his muzzle just above his nose. His weapon of choice appeared to be a green flame-bladed sword. The only female Jackal in the group wore a green sleeveless top and brown pants. And she appeared to be working on what looked like an outdated egg mobile and carried a belt full of tools such as screwdrivers and wrenches. The last one hung in the back of the room, shrouded in shadows. But he heard his teammates call as he opened his own eyes. Though unlike his brethren, only his left eye was yellow while his right one was blue. "What's going on, Duex?" The one with the katana and kunai approached the wearing the orange beret apparently named Duex. "We finally got some action going on, that's what, Uno." Duex grinned widely as he got up off his seat. "About time if you ask me. Just who exactly are we up against?" The Jackal with the green headband asked as he and the female Jackal approached the screen. "Looks like some locals," the female answered. "Wait, hold on." She went to the console and typed away on the keyboard, pausing the image and zooming in on one individual in particular, Omega. "That's an E100 series. But you said that Eggman had discontinued that series, toi," Uno said to his female companion. "Exactly, that's why we've been unable to find any more parts. In fact, the only parts we could get were those left behind here at this base." The female Jackal named Toi answered. "You mean the base we raided for egg tech and treasures, only to be caught up in that bright flash of light and zapped to a completely new world, right?" The green bandana Jackal summed up. "Yes, Katra. That's exactly it. The same world that we are currently trapped in." Toi confirmed. "Who cares? These guys are looking for a fight. So, let's give them a fight." Dur said excitedly as he reached along the wall for his personal weapon, a custom-made double-bladed axe with an axe blade at each end of the pole. "But why is there only one E100 robot attacking this place anyway?" Uno questioned. "Because he's not alone." A deep voice spoke from the end of the room, drawing the other Jackal's attention as their leader stepped out of the shadows and into the light. He was the tallest of his group with long white dreadlocks on the back of his hair. The look on his face was one of complete and total seriousness, with the eyes of a killer. The weapon he carried was sheathed on his back, which was a ruby-colored curved sword, something similar to a scimitar. The leader of the Jackals went to the console to look on the monitor himself, typing away at the keys to pull up images of the attacking intruders. There is only one E100 robot left, and wherever he is, a certain hedgehog will be with him. He typed in a few more key commands to pull up a still frame of the hedgehog in question as he engaged in battle with the egg hammers. "Wait. Is that?" Katra looked in surprise with the rest of his teammates. "Shadow the Hedgehog." Uno nodded. "Seems we're not the only ones trapped in this world." Sonic's edgy double. "Oh yeah, now my blood is pumping." Duex grinned widely. "I call dibs." "No," their leader said firmly. "He's mine." Zero. Toi looked to him with curiosity. "Long have I sought a worthy challenge, and now, he is here." A sinister smile formed on Zero's face. "Send in everything we got. Let's give our guests a proper greeting, Jackal Squad." Badniks are pouring out of the base. Shadow informed Rouge via her scroll eyepiece as she hid behind a dune with Nora and Ren. "Move in, now." "Got it. Hang on tight, kids." The white bat grabbed Nora under her arms and picked her up while Ren held onto her feet and Rouge carried them both straight to the pyramid, going up towards the opening she previously spotted. "Don't you dare look up, Ren," Nora told him, causing the young man to blush as he did his best to look only straight down while Rouge had a teasing smirk on her face. She then spotted the opening near the top of the pyramid and flew inside, carrying the two former students in with her. But, no less than 2 minutes in later, that same masked individual who had been following them, followed them inside. And her mode of transportation also came from her weapon, which was now glowing green as a green energy hemisphere was generated outward, taking a shape similar to an umbrella. This allowed her to float up and hover into the entranceway, following the three heroes. At the same time, John, Pyrrha, and Cardin were dashing their way towards an opening at the base of the pyramid at the east side. However, Cardin happened to spot something. "Wait." He pulled both John and Pyrrha back by their shoulders. "Look." He pointed to a series of footprints in the sand that led into the opening. "Footprints?" Pyrrha looked in surprise. "Maybe from whoever's running this place," John assumed. "No." Cardin shook his head. "In deserts, all you need is a little bit of wind to blow the sand, and it'll cover just about any track." These prints were made recently, very recently. John and Kira exchanged surprised and concerning looks with each other as the latter accessed her comms. Rouge, Ren, Nora, heads up. Somebody else just entered the pyramid. Watch your backs. Understood. Thanks for the warning, Ren relayed. Let's go, John said. His partner and the former bully nodded with him as they dashed into the pyramid. Meanwhile, aboard Eggman's ship, Emerald sat by herself in a hallway, looking out the window at the new desert landscape that they were in. She'd heard of Vacuo before, but this was her first time being here. Everything she heard from it was basically the entire kingdom being a wasteland, and it seems what she heard was accurate. And yet, here she was, looking for some glowing rocks that could do brothers know what. She, for 100th time, thought back to that night at Beacon Academy, seeing Super Sonic wipe out the largest swarm of Grimm that she'd ever seen in her life. Thousands of Grimm, including that enormous wyvern, not to mention the advanced robotic army of Eggman that overran the entire Atlas military, all of it was wiped out in a matter of seconds. Not only that, but Vale was also wiped clean of the Grimm completely. The more she thought about it, the more unbelievable it sounded. She wondered what Cinder would do in this situation. Cinder always knew what to do. And the more she wondered what Cinder would do, the more she thought about Cinder herself. Emerald had no idea whether or not Cinder was even alive, and that terrified her. And if she was, Eggman and everyone working with him had every intention of killing her. She couldn't let that happen. Not to Cinder. She was everything to her. The whole reason she was even tagging along with Eggman was to use him to find Cinder and slip away from her. If she was alive anyway. But it seemed like Eggman wasn't the least bit interested in finding her, not much of a surprise since he never really liked her. And if he wasn't bothering to look for Cinder, did that mean she was already dead? And if she was, then what was the point of Emerald even being here? The door next to her opened as Mercury stepped out, stretching his arms and prosthetic legs. I'll tell ya, the doc might be a pain, but he knows what he's doing. You should have seen me back there. He gestured to the training room behind him, where about a dozen Badnik robots were all reduced to scrap just as the door closed. New legs, huh? Emerald looked to Mercury's new prosthetic legs, which were covered by his pants so she couldn't quite see anything. Aside from a shiny glimmer of metal between the cuffs of his pants and shoes. Yep, special titanium carbon alloy. The silver-haired young man smirked with pride. Much lighter than what I had before, tough as hell, and a few bonus features that would make those guys up in Altas insanely jealous. Honestly, I feel like I could go toe-to-toe with that red echidna guy back at Beacon and cave his head in. He gave a straight kick showing that he was more than a little excited to test his new toys in the field. Emerald looked at him with a serious expression. Mercury, can I ask you something? Sure, what's up? He shrugged. Why did you come with us? The night Cinder and I met you. Emerald asked. His good mood faded slightly, clearly not expecting that sort of question. Why are you asking? Just answer it, Emerald insisted, sounding a bit irritated. Shrugging, Mercury answered. It just made sense. It made sense, Emerald repeated, not sounding very convinced. Since I could crawl, my old man trained me to be a killer like him. A top-tier assassin. Mercury began. And after I killed the bastard, you two showed up looking for someone with my exact skills. So, I just thought, why not? And rolled with it. Emerald looked at him in surprise. That's it. You just rolled with it. Now Mercury was really getting irritated. Hey, what's your problem? The girl stood up from her chair. You do know what's happened only a couple weeks ago, right? Yeah, our little blue alien turned gold and wiped out all the Grimm from Vale. Mercury waved off. How can you be so casual about that? Emerald exclaimed. That alien pretty much turned into a god. That's what we're up against, right now. You really think a couple of tweaks on your legs are gonna stand up against that? Hey, he needs those fancy rocks to go all golden god mode, right? Mercury argued. We find them before he does, problem solved. You're talking about racing against someone whose own name is centered around speed. Emerald countered. Cinder had more power than either of us could imagine, more power than either of us have right now, and she lost to him. Yeah, she did. That's why I'm here. Mercury gestured around him, referring to the ship. I'm not Cinder, I'm not arrogant enough to think I can actually take on Blue Boy right now and win, even with my new legs. But Eggman, he's got the experience going against old Blue, and all this tech and power to make me even more dangerous than I already am. Stick with him, I'll be one of the top dogs in his new world. Experience. Is that what you call him losing every fight he's waged against Sonic? Emerald questioned. And that's why he's gonna lose this fight. Mercury countered. He's beaten Eggman, sure. But he hasn't killed him. Why not? 'Cause he's weak and spineless. All we gotta do is take advantage of that. He noticed a certain look in Emerald's eyes. But you're not really thinking about him, are you? That took Emerald by surprise. You're thinking about Cinder. She's dead, Em. You don't know that. She all but screamed. Why do you even care so much? Mercury questioned. Wake the hell up, Emerald. Cinder never cared about you. She only ever cared about herself. I figured that out the second I met her. Shut up. Emerald tried to punch him, but Mercury caught her by the wrist and spun her around to pin her arms behind her back before pinning her against the open window. Let me give you some advice, Emerald. Stop looking for a family, 'cause you're never gonna get one. Mercury told her, which only caused her eyes to widen and her pupils to shake. You were abandoned and left to rot on the streets, but Cinder took you in, and you think that means she cared about you. She only took you in because of your semblance. She wanted to use you just like my father used me. My own father never cared about me. Hell, he hated me the second I came into this world. Every day of so-called training was a beating. More than once, I thought he'd beat me to death. He stole my semblance the second it developed and never gave it back, even after he promised to do so after I got strong enough. I've had to work harder than anyone on this stupid planet, and I'm stronger now than I've ever been, and I'm going to keep getting stronger. If you want to have some kind of existential crisis cause your precious Cinder's not here, keep me out of it. He threw her to the ground and glared at her, but his glare softened somewhat as he saw Emerald looking up to him with sniffles and a few tears in her eyes. Only for that tension to fade as the sounds of clapping could be heard from the other side of the hallway behind Mercury. They both looked in that direction to see none other than Eggman with a smirk over his face, clapping his hands. Bravo, Mercury. Very well said. Eggman applauded. How long have you been there? Mercury exclaimed. Easy, kid. I'm only saying that I agree with you. Eggman assured, much to Mercury's confusion. Family's overrated anyway. No matter how much you succeed, what talents you have or skills you've gained, or accomplishments, they'll never really acknowledge you. If anything, they'll compare you to some of your more successful family members, or be too busy mourning any dead relatives, leaving you alone while you weep and eat cake. At that point, you can only really do two things. Continue drowning your sorrows in junk food and waste years of your life trying to appease people who'll never approve of you, or cut your ties with that waste of space and succeed only for yourself. And it seems you chose the latter. Mercury lowered his guard, but still kept a hard look on the doctor even as Emerald pulled herself up. I want to test my new legs. On something other than robots. Before Eggman could make a reply, however, Orbot rounded the corner behind his creator to speak while holding a data pad. I hate to interrupt, boss. But we have a situation. What now? Eggman groaned. We did a scan of the area to try and see if we could locate any of the Chaos Emeralds, but our systems picked up the reactivation of a rather old system. Orbot informed. A system from our network. But I don't recognize these readings. Give me that. Eggman swiped the data pad from his subordinate and looked over what he found. Emerald and Mercury happened to look to each other, wondering what was going on. Oh, well, this is interesting. What is, boss? Orbot asked. You'll see soon enough. Eggman tossed him the data pad back. Ready my latest dust mech. And you two are coming with me. He pointed to Emerald and Mercury. You're in luck, Mercury. You just got a chance to field test your new toys. Pyramid Base. The egg hammer fell backwards, its head separated from its body and landing flat on its back, just across from the second egg hammer that appeared to be eviscerated in the chest area, with Shadow standing in front of them both. The black hedgehog looked past the wrecked robots to see Omega and the rest of Team CFVY finishing off the remainder of the Badnik reinforcements. He wouldn't lie to say that these students had potential as well, which is to be expected from second years compared to Teams RWBY and JNPR. They certainly have proven to be worthy allies. But as for whether or not to inform them of Salem, that still remained up in the air. His thoughts were soon interrupted by the sound of incoming missiles, forcing Shadow to speed away from the spot before it was blown to pieces, drawing the attention of Team CFVY and Omega as well. Heads up, we got more company. Coco warned her team as Shadow regrouped and stood in front of them all to see who it was that was now attacking them. It appeared to be none other than the Egg Walker, the same Egg Mobile with legs that Eggman himself once operated when Shadow first met him, but it had several modifications to it. Such as a pair of jet boosters in its back as well as large mechanical arms built into the sides, with the right one having a mace attached to its hand and the left having a large Gatling gun, both looking like they belonged to separate Badnik units that were fused and welded together. The one piloting this modified mech was none other than Twa, with her teammates sitting around her and their leader standing at the top to look down at the intruders. Deal with the others, Zero ordered as he drew his sword and pointed it to Shadow. But that one's mine. With pleasure, Captain. Duex grinned as he drew his double axe, spun it high in the air and leapt straight for Yatsuhashi, who quickly drew Fulcrum to block the strike, though the force behind their weapons' collision did cause a brief shockwave that blew away most of the sand in the area. Yatsuhashi glared at Duex, whose grin only grew as he spun his axe around him like a master and went for several rapid slashes that forced Yatsuhashi on the back foot. Katra drew his flame-bladed sword and pressed a button that caused it to be set ablaze with green fire as he went straight for Fox, slicing who blocked the flaming sword with sharp retribution, but had to wince from the resulting heat from the fire and allowing an opening for Katra to slash his weapon at Fox, before delivering a sweeping kick to push him back. Though Fox quickly flipped up to a fallen pillar behind him as Katra landed on said pillar as well before dashing at him with his flaming weapon. Uno had thrown a pair of kunai at Velvet, which she blocked with a hardlight copy of Janduya. But the second she blinked, Uno was already on her, slicing through the hardlight Gatling gun with his katana and knocking her to the ground. He looked ready to impale her, but she backflipped out of the way in time before using Anisadora to create hardlight copies of Gamble's shroud, which she was used to block the relentless slashes of Uno's katana. Twa remained in the modified Egg Walker as it set down in front of Omega and Coco before firing the Gatling gun at the pair, aiming in between as to separate them before she went straight for Omega. She threw her mech's mace arm at him, but Omega caught the weapon with his bare hands. "You have modified old Eggman technology," Omega observed. "Such a patchwork excuse of a mech hardly compares to a superior model such as myself." He pulled back his right fist and delivered a punch to the mace to knock it back before arming his missiles, which Twa avoided by having her mech jump over the resulting blast and land behind Omega to deliver a back kick to knock him down. "I'll be sure to make the proper upgrades from your mangled chassis." Twa glared but was forced to bring her mech's arms up to shield herself from the bullets of Coco's Janduya. "Not before I turn your little toy into scrap," Coco stated as she pressed her attack, using her semblance to further enhance her dust rounds and begin tearing away at the outer shell of Twa mech. That until it launched a missile from its side straight for Coco, who attempted to leap out of the way just as the missile hit where she was, only to get blasted back by the resulting shockwave. Shadow was more than ready to help out, only to catch a glimmer of red out of the corner of his eye and quickly drew Arondite to block the red sword from Zero, who went on the attack with several quick slashes. Shadow blocked them all quickly enough before teleporting behind Zero to land a kick on his back with enough force to send him crashing to a fallen pillar. And before he could up, Zero felt himself pinned to the ground by Shadow's foot as he faced upward. But rather than look frustrated, Zero smiled. "Excellent. I was worried all the stories I've heard of you were exaggerated. I'm glad that's not the case." He Shadow's ankle to throw him off, though Shadow rolled in the air and used his air shoes to dash at Zero, who sliced his sword at him, only for Shadow to teleport and appear behind him, ready to slash at him with Arondite. Only for Zero to flash his red blade behind, without even turning around, much to Shadow's surprise before Zero followed with a roundhouse kick to knock the black hedgehog back. "Teleporting can certainly be useful," Zero commented, "but once I see how a move plays out, it won't work on me again." "Who are you?" Shadow narrowed his eyes. "I am Zero, leader of Jackal Squad, the greatest mercenaries in our world," he declared before pointing his sword at Shadow again. "And you are Shadow the Hedgehog, the supposed ultimate life form, strongest being on world next to Sonic himself." "Oh, How long I've waited for a worthy challenge. Show me what you can do. Zero dashed straight for Shadow, moving rather fast, but not as fast as Sonic or Shadow himself as the Black Hedgehog blocked his enemy's sword with his own. Be careful not to bite off more than you can chew. You'll choke. Shadow glared. Meanwhile, John, Pyrrha, and Cardin made their way through the stone hallways of the pyramid, following the map on John's scroll, and so far, they appeared to have encountered no resistance. Seems like the enemy took the bait. Pyrrha observed. We should still keep our guard up. John said seriously. Should we? Cardin asked somewhat awkwardly. I mean, this place was abandoned, right? It's not like there's an active factor or anything going on. I'd rather not take the chance. John replied swiftly, almost like he was cutting off Cardin. Besides, we still got those other people in here too, remember? Oh, right. The former bully looked away. We should still quicken our pace though. We need to get to that computer and find out what we can. John said as the trio moved a bit more rapidly, though they didn't run, more like a fast walk. But as they did, Pyrrha could sense the awkward tension between John and Cardin and understood why. Back at Beacon, John had told Pyrrha and the rest of their team what had happened between him and Cardin, which of course led to Ren and Nora learning that John used forged transcripts to even get into Beacon in the first place, which wasn't much of a surprise to either of them. Ren picked up on it rather quickly just from seeing how John could fight, and Nora figured it out not long after either. But regardless, they all knew of Cardin's blackmail attempt at John, which did earn him their ire, with Nora wanting to break all the legs of Cardin and his whole team, but John told her that he already handled it. And since Cardin wasn't much of a bother to them after that point, they just let it go. But here, right now, things were definitely weird for all of them. Pyrrha could tell that John was trying to keep it professional, which she respected him for, but the hostility was still there, not that she blamed him. But some buried resentment may only cause more problems in the future, so it might be best to just clear the air now. Pyrrha quickened her pace to move to John's side and nudged him to get his attention. She motioned her head towards Cardin, silently telling him to speak his mind to him. John looked hesitant at first, but when Pyrrha gave him an expectant look, such as a raised eyebrow and a frown, he conceded. Cardin, John said as he stopped, leading to the group to stop where they were, standing in a rather narrow hallway. Why yes. He stiffened up. John sighed before speaking. First of all, I wanted to say I'm sorry. That caused Cardin to look in surprise as John turned to face him directly. What happened to your team at Beacon? That was messed up. The mention of his old teammates caused Cardin to look away with an expression of guilt. I don't know what kind of relationship you had with them, but I can tell what happened hurt. And I can't even imagine what that must be like to lose your whole team like that. I'm really sorry, honest. Cardin gave him a slight smile. Thanks. Now with that out of the way, John then looked serious. I still can't forgive you for what happened at Beacon. That caused Cardin's eyes to widen. What you did to me, and then tried to do to her. He gestured to Pyrrha. And yeah, she knows what went down between us. It's one thing if you wanna pick on me, but going after my friends is another story. And it wasn't just us. You hurt a lot of people at Beacon, including Velvet and probably every other Faunus student there. You weren't just a bully, you were a bigot. That caused Cardin to look away with shame before John sighed. But, for some reason, Velvet's not trying to hold a grudge and let you tag along for whatever reason you want to. If you wanna help, fine. I'm willing to work with you and even listen to anything you have to say. But that also means you gotta treat my team, my friends, with respect. But I do not see you or I being friends, so you don't have to act all friendly with me. Let's just keep this professional, okay? He offered his hand to shake. Cardin looked to John's open hand and then the serious look on his face showing that he meant every word. On one hand, it was good to know that John was willing to work with him and even listen if he had anything to say. It would certainly make communication and working together easier. Not to mention he felt sorry for what happened to his team. On the other, it was very clear that John didn't like Cardin and wasn't planning on liking him anytime soon. Not that he blamed him. Okay. Cardin accepted, shaking John's hand. Pyrrha smiled at how professionally and mature John sounded here. He was willing to put his grudge aside and work with a former antagonist. But much like John, she didn't see herself befriending Cardin either, as she agreed with much of what John said. "We should keep moving," she suggested. "Yeah." John nodded, but when he stepped on a certain brick, it lowered slightly under his foot before the doorways on both sides of the hallway closed shut, much to the trio's shock. Stone spikes emerged from the sides and ceiling as all three began to condense and move closer. "It's a trap," Kiro exclaimed as they tried to run for the exit, but the walls and ceiling were coming closer, the spikes already blocking their path. Cardin had already taken out the executioner and used to smash through the stone spikes to clear their way to the door, which they tried to force open. "Kira, can't you open it?" John exclaimed as the walls and ceiling continued to close in, already forcing the three together. "There's no metal inside." She touched her hand to the stone door. "In fact, this whole chamber is made out of stone. What do we do then? We're gonna get crushed." Cardin shouted as he tried to smash the right wall open while John drew his shield and tried to force the wall back as hard as he could, but he couldn't even slow it down. "Kira." He looked to his partner with a nod, much to her surprise. He was telling her to use her maiden powers. It would definitely get them out of here, but that would also reveal her powers to Cardin, and that would lead to a can of worms that neither were ready to open. They didn't exactly trust Cardin to keep something like this quiet. But present circumstances didn't give them much of a choice. However, she noticed a wave of heat on the stone door right in front of her. She soon saw the stone melting at a certain point as she could feel the intense heat only growing. Something was coming through. "Get back," she warned the boys as they tried to step back, watching the stone door explode in front of them. Shooting out of the smoke were a pair of sais charged with electricity that flew out to slice through all the spikes, giving some more wiggle room for John, Kira, and Cardin, before being pulled back and through the smoking doorway. Two pairs of hands were reached in to grab all three of them and yank them out of the hallway just before the walls and ceiling collided. The trio were thrown hard to the ground but would soon look up to their saviors. There were two of them, one being a man and the other a woman. The man appeared to be in his late 20s or early 30s, and was incredibly tall, standing at 6 feet and 6 inches. He also had a strong build, evident by his muscular arms with a long scar on his right forearm. He had slightly tanned skin with green eyes, a green mohawk and goatee on his face. His attire consisted of a brown cloak with a hood, a green armored chest plate over a black tunic with black pants and dark green boots. He also carried a chained mace over his shoulder. His partner clearly stood out among the pair, being a young woman with silky dark skin, long wavy auburn hair with a single silver streak, golden eyes, freckles, and a black stylish tattoo on the right side of her torso running down to her upper leg. Her clothing consisted of a dark navy cropped long-sleeved shirt with a metal chain-like top attached, a silver shoulder cape with a crimson trim and an emblem that resembled a snake's face with a diamond at the forehead. She also had crimson torn-off booty shorts that matched her tatter scarf and thigh-high leather boots with folded-over tops and small lace-up detailing. She also had goggles on her head, and a black sheath on her right sleeve and another on her left leg, which housed her sais as they were telekinetically put in right before the youth's eyes. "Well, looky what we got here," the woman said playfully as the three stood up. "A bunch of kids snooping into a death trap. Good thing we were here to bail you out, And who are you supposed to be?" John questioned. "Oh, I was expecting a thank you before we went with the introductions." "Talk about ungrateful," the woman teased, which only caused John to grow slightly irritated, but Kira quickly stepped up. "Thank you, for your assistance," she spoke. "You're welcome," the woman replied cockily. "Now, for the introductions," Kira encouraged expectantly. "The name's Bertilik Celadon," the man introduced. "This is my partner, Carmen Escalados. We're professionals. From the looks of things, you three are students." "We are. Professor Theodore sent us," Kira confirmed. "But he didn't say that any professionals would be joining us." John looked at them suspiciously. "Oh, somebody's suspicious," Carmen teased. "Not all of us have to work for that pathetic excuse of an academy. My partner and I are freelancers. We saw this giant pyramid appear out of nowhere and figured we'd scout it for anything valuable. Turns out, lots of people are interested in this place. You heard of these guys?" John asked Cardin subtly. "No, but I haven't been in Vacuo for very long, so I can't say for sure if these guys are legit or not," Cardin replied. Carmen then found herself looking at Pyrrha. You look familiar, have we met? No, we haven't. Pyrrha didn't exactly feel comfortable with the way this woman was looking at her. It then clicked for the woman. Oh, now I remember. She snapped her fingers. Pyrrha Nikos, right. The girl nodded to confirm it. Damn, almost didn't recognize you. From all your pics and videos, you always have your hair tied back. But, I gotta admit, you look good with your hair down like that. Not a bad outfit either. She put her arm around Pyrrha, which only made her more uncomfortable. When we're done here, how about you and I do some shopping? I know a thing or two about fashion myself. And with a couple of gorgeous ladies like us, we look so good that not a single person would be able to take their eyes off us. John looked ready to step in, noticing how uncomfortable his partner is, but Pyrrha pulled herself away. Thank you for the offer, Miss Escalados, but I'll have to pass. Carmen shrugged. Have it your way. So, Theodore sent you, then. Bertilic got right to the main point. Yeah, he did. Cardin nodded. We're supposed to get some intel on a dangerous enemy that may be arriving in Vacuo. How about we tag along? Bertilic offered. Just in case you kids need your asses saved again. Though John didn't like the tone these two were speaking to them at, with Bertilic apparently looking down on them while Carmen seemed incredible arrogant and condescending, he knew that having a pair of professional huntsmen on their side wasn't exactly a bad thing either. If Shadow were here, he would tell John to utilize whatever resources he could, and that's what he was going to do. Then follow us, John said. We scouted this place and got a map that'll show us where to go. Lead the way, Mr. Knight. Carmen said teasingly, poking fun at John's armor, which caused him to roll his eyes before the trio, now a group of 5, resumed their quick pace through the pyramid. At the same time, Rouge led Ren and Nora through the uppermost part of the pyramid, specifically through the egg quarters area. As she walked, the bat couldn't help but smile with nostalgia. This brings back memories, she said aloud. You've been here before, Ren noted. Yep, had to infiltrate Eggman's ranks after he took control of the Ark way back when. Rouge summed up. Let me tell ya, that was fun. Working with the bad guys was fun. Nora questioned. Well, more like sabotaging them and seeing the looks on their faces when they've realized they were duped. Rouge replied. Nora chuckled. Okay, that does sound fun. Anything we should be worried about? Ren asked. Even if this place is abandoned, whoever else is in charge here could have traps set up for us. Probably. Rouge said. So just keep your eyes and ears open for. A loud explosion rang out from the next room over, catching their attention as the three exchanged glances with each other. Drawing their weapons, the three ran to the door and down the hallway, moving up the steps before coming to a large chamber where they saw something that made them look in surprise. It was a large robot, but rather than it being a badnik, it appeared to be a modified F-6T Bigfoot from gun that seemed automated, as well as had Eggman tech mixed into it, including dual egg hammer arms, each one with a mallet at the end, attached to its sides. But that wasn't the most unusual thing about this situation. What was really unusual was who was fighting the Bigfoot. A female anthropomorphic wolf with biscotti fur wearing a dark gray hooded robe that had 6 containers inside, a cream-colored tube top, light gray leggings, dark gray arm sleeves with black elbow pads, dark gray and light gray gloves, dark gray knee sleeves with black knee pads, and military-fashioned black boots. But what stood out the most of her attire was the unusual-looking mask she wore. The wolf rolled across the ground to avoid the hammer strike from the modified Bigfoot and aimed her weapon, a pink energy streak flying into it before she fired what seemed like an energy buzzsaw that severed the entire right joint of the unit. The missile silos on the Bigfoot's back opened, but a green energy streak flew into the wolf's weapon as a pink streak left it, causing a green energy hemisphere to appear as she used it to quickly over and avoid the missiles that were shot where she once stood. Once she was above it, the green energy left the weapon before a blue one took its place, causing a hammer-like construct to form as the wolf fell down and she smashed at the missile silos, destroying them with just 2 swings total. She then leapt behind the Bigfoot as the blue energy from her weapon was substituted for an orange one before firing something akin to an orange energy rocket at the Bigfoot's back, causing the whole thing to go up in flames. Oh yeah, that was awesome, Nora hollered as she and her friends entered the chamber. The wolf gasped as she saw them and quickly used her weapon's hover mode to fly up into an open hole in the ceiling above. Wait, hold on, we're friendly. Nora tried, but she already seemed gone. Had a feeling we were being followed. Rouge said, much to Nora and Ren's surprise. We were being followed? Ren questioned. Yep, ever since we left Shade. Shadow probably figured it out too. Rouge said. In fact, I'm willing to bet she even helped us out with that grim attack when we first arrived in Vacuo. Why didn't you say anything? Ren asked. Considering she actually helped before, I don't think she's bad enough to warrant a warning. Rouge explained. But if she's here to help, why run away? Nora asked. Some people just prefer to work solo. Rouge understood. Nothing wrong with it, it's their business. But since we're all here, Rouge could tell with her advanced hearing that this mask-wearing wolf was still here, just observing them from a distance. Hey, it's okay. We're not gonna hurt you, not that we could, you seem like you can take care of yourself. I get that crowds probably aren't your thing, but I'm just gonna guess that we got the same objective. Would be easier if we worked together, right? Almost in response, multiple colors of light flashed from the hole as 5 wisps flew down into the chamber to greet Rouge and the others. They were each of a different color and variety, a blue one, a pink one, an orange one, a green one, and a cyan one. Whoa, Nora looked in surprise as she and the wide-eyed Ren saw these wisps fly around them with the pink one flying close to Nora. Aw, aren't you cute? She waved her finger in front of the pink wisp, before it nuzzled up against her face, causing her to laugh. Ren saw the green wisp observe him as well and couldn't help but smile. Such a gentle and innocent-looking creature. It was honestly beautiful. Yep, thought I saw some wisp powers going off. Rouge said knowingly as the blue, orange, and cyan one flew around her. Wisps? You mean those aliens Sonic told us about? Ren asked. The ones that Ruby and her group rescued in Mistral. Yep, but I doubt these guys are part of that same group. Rouge answered as they saw the wolf drop down from the ceiling to face the trio. Huh, cool mask. Nora smiled. Love the robe, too. The wolf hesitated to remove her mask, but did so anyway. These people seemed good at the very least, not that she suspected them to be evil or anything. If that were the case, her wisps wouldn't have shown themselves like this. They were always good judges of character. Well, except for one person in particular. But if they had the same objective as her, it wouldn't hurt to at least work together to accomplish that goal and maybe get some answers as to where she was and how she ended up here. Her face was now visible, revealing a brown muzzle, think black eyelashes, white fur covering her eyes almost like a mask in of itself. Though her eyes, which had thick gray eye shadow over them, seemed squinted to the point they almost seemed perpetually closed. But if one looked closely enough, they could see she had blue eyes. Whisper, she spoke softly. Why? Nora asked before whispering herself. Is somebody else here? No, Nora. I believe Whisper is her name. Ren said. Oh, my bad. She answered before smiling towards the wolf, but didn't step too close as to not scare her off. My name's Nora, this is Ren and Rouge. We're all friends here. Whisper only gave a nod in understanding. We're on our way to the central computer, it shouldn't be far from here. Rouge informed Whisper as her wisps returned to her, flying into the containers within her robe. You with us? Whisper nodded again. Alright, let's go. Rouge led the way again as Ren and Nora ran alongside her with Whisper trailing behind them. Outside in the pyramid's courtyard, while Shadow and Omega, along with Team CFVY had a relatively easy time dealing with the Badniks before, the Jackal squad was a whole different story. Duex continued to spin his double-sided axe rapidly by its pole as he pushed forward against Yatsuhashi, who was stuck on defense and unable to find so much as an opening, using his massive sword as a shield. "Aw come on, is that all you got?" Duex questioned in a furious and excitable tone with a maniacal smile. "You got your muscles and that massive sword. Use them." He lunged his axe forward like a spear, which Yatsuhashi avoided as he swerved out of the way, raised Fulcrum up once he is at Duex's side and brought it down. Duex raised the pole of his double axe to try and block it, only for the pole to be sliced in half as Fulcrum hit the ground at Duex's feet, creating a powerful shockwave that knocked the Jackal back. "How is that?" Yatsuhashi glared at Duex as he pushed himself back on his feet. Whose own maniacal grin grew even more. "That's more like it. He now wielded his spilt double axe as a pair of dual axes as he rushed to clash weapons with Yatsuhashi again. Fox zoomed straight for Katra, who dashed at him as well. The two dashed past each other, clashing their respective weapons. Though Fox winced as he felt the intense heat from Katra's flaming sword, which Katra pressed by dashing for Fox once again, slicing his sword of green flames at Fox, who backflipped to avoid it even as Katra swung his sword to send waves of green fire at the flipping Fox, who was able to reach and land behind a fallen pillar, which he used for cover as the flames exploded, but Fox was still protected. Huh, not bad for a blind man. Katra complimented as he dashed to Fox's hiding spot and slashed his fire sword at him, but Fox was prepared. Just as Katra landed on top of the pillar and raised his sword, Fox swung sharp retribution at the right moment to slice the weapon from Katra's hands, much to his surprise before kicking the Jackal to the ground. Sight's overrated anyway. Fox cracked before slicing at Katra, putting him on the defensive as he tried to make a break for his discarded weapon, the flames having gone out and was forced to use it flameless and block Fox's weapon. Velvet was currently locked in a heated duel with Uno as he slashed his katana with ruthless mastery as Velvet, with her hardlight copies of Gamble Shroud and Blake's fighting style, was only enough just to keep herself from getting cut. But that wouldn't last forever as Uno quickly pulled his katana back and looked ready to deliver an attack. Deciding not to wait for him, Velvet dashed for Uno to slice at him quickly. Only for Uno to perform an Iaido-based attack, slashing his katana with enough force to shatter Velvet's hardlight weapons and slice at her with enough force to send her crashing to the ground. That attack would have cleaved a normal person in half. How did you survive? Uno questioned as he walked over to Velvet and saw a flash of brown energy around her aura. I see, some sort of energy barrier. Interesting. Let's test the limits of its durability, shall we? He raised his katana to strike at her. But Velvet rolled on her back to face Uno, having used her camera-like weapon to create hard-light copies of Ember Silica, throwing out a punch to counter the katana before it made contact while also throwing another punch into Uno's stomach, surprising him as he skidded on his feet some distance from her, but still remained standing. She first wielded a long-ranged weapon, then a pair of dual swords, now gauntlets. Uno thought as he saw Velvet take a stance that was completely different, one that mirrored a style reliant on hand-to-hand combat. She's changed her fighting style so quickly. I see, she is a combat chameleon, able to mimic other people's fighting styles. She can even switch between styles on the fly, it seems. Interesting. He smirked, clearly impressed as he pointed his katana towards her challengingly, before rushing her again. Twa piloted her modified egg walkers, gunning straight for Coco who continued to shoot Janduya at her, but Twa used a pair of rear boosters to maneuver herself to the side and avoid the shots that tore up the ground she once stood at and zoomed straight for Coco on the side, moving too fast for her counter as she was forced to use her giant weapon to block the arm swing of Twa, mech, knocking it out of her hands and sending Coco rolling across the ground. She would have pressed on had Omega not zoomed at her with his own jet boosters and threw a powerful punch to the egg walker's side, sending it skidding on its feet as Twa tried to stabilize it. Omega the unleashed his flamethrower at her, to which Twa countered by holding one of her mech's arms out in front of her like a shield before firing her built-in Vulcan gun as well as the mini-gun on its other arm and even a volley of missiles all to overwhelm Omega. But the reformed Badnik then fired off his ice dust rounds onto the ground in front of him to shield himself from the combined attacks. While the ice did explode from the missiles primarily, it also allowed Omega a chance to fly up and above Twa, where he pulled both his arms up and came back down to smash at her. Twa quickly raised both her mech's arms up to try and block it, but Omega's strength proved far superior as it tore through both of the mech's arms, much to Twa's shock as her modified mech was sent flying back from the impact as Omega landed. Although modified, your machine is still outdated and inferior to my well-maintained systems. It will fall apart soon enough. Omega declared. Just as I have said before. I'm not done yet. Twa glared. You sure about that? Coco called out as she had recollected Janduya and opened fire, tearing through the modified egg walker's legs and forcing Twa to activate the jet boosters underneath, detaching from what was left of the legs as she now hovered in a heavily damaged makeshift egg mobile and already growing frustrated and nervous as he faced Omega and Coco together. At the same time, in the very middle of the courtyard, Shadow continued his sword duel against Zero, the mercenary slashing as hard and quick as he could and seemed to put Shadow on the defensive. That is until the black hedgehog quickly detached Arondite's Rilf and separated it from his sword to shoot point blank at Zero, who leapt back to get some distance before rapidly spinning his sword in front of him like a helicopter blade to shield himself from the bullets. Only to blink and see Shadow already at him with his superior speed, flipping and delivering a cartwheel kick to Zero's head, pushing him into the ground. But not only did Zero not buckle underneath the force of the impact, but he also slashed at Shadow with his sword in retaliation as Shadow leapt back to analyze his foe. He's only about half as fast as myself and Sonic, but he's surprisingly tough. The ultimate life form thought. He knows how to use that weapon of his, and he's quick to adapt as well. I don't need to remove my inhibitor rings, but I shouldn't underestimate him either. Zero smirked as he rubbed his head slightly, cracking his neck. It's been ages since I had a fight like this. Don't stop, Shadow the Hedgehog. Let's keep this going. I'm only getting started. A pity then, that I will end this fight now. Shadow was ready to zoom at Zero, his hands charging with chaos energy while Zero readied his sword with a sinister smirk. But before either could act, however, a series of energy beams rained down from the sunny sky in between the wearing hedgehog and Jackal. This likewise occurred throughout the battlefield as more energy beams came down, forcing the heroes and mercenaries to pause their respective battles as they all looked up to what had attacked them. Descending from the sun below was a giant mechanical monstrosity that seemed to have the body of a great lion made from shining white and gold metal along with brilliant golden metallic wings that looked like they belonged to an eagle. But the face of the mechanical beast was none other than that of the mad scientist who created it. The face opened to reveal said creator as he laughed with his machine hovering just above the courtyard. Well, you all look like you're having fun. Mind if I cut in? Dr. Eggman chuckled. Shadow tisked in annoyance. Of course. Coco tisked herself. Great, another giant killer robot monster. Where does he even get these things? Zero was rather surprised himself before he chuckled. Well, this day just gets better and better. The legendary Dr. Eggman, who more than once nearly brought the world to an end. Oh ho ho, my reputation precedes me. I don't believe I've met you before, but it doesn't matter. You're all trespassing on my territory. Eggman gestured behind him to Pyramid Base. And trespassers will be vaporized, whether they're outside or inside. He grinned, surprising Shadow. Eggman knows Rouge and Team JNPR are inside. And you shall meet a glorious end at the hand of my latest creation, the Egg Sphinx. He laughed again as the face of his mech closed and the wings of the Egg Sphinx glowed again. Move it. Coco warned everyone as her team, Shadow, Omega, and even Jackal squadron scattered to avoid the resulting energy beams that shot out from the Egg Sphinx's wings. John, Pyrrha, Cardin, along with Carmen and Bertilik entered the central control room of Pyramid Base, finding various scattered robotic pieces, along with the main computer at the end of the large circular chamber. It looks like we're here, John said, looking at the map on his scroll to confirm it. But before they could get to the computer, the door on the other side opened as the group prepared to draw their respective weapons, only to find Ren, Nora, Rouge entering the chamber, with Whisper trailing behind them. "Aw man, you guys beat us here," Nora said in a fake pout, to which her teammates laughed as they met in the middle, but that's when they took notice of the extra company each group picked up. "Who do we have here?" Rouge asked, referring to two adults behind John and the others. "Carmen and Bertilik, professional and independent huntsmen who came to investigate the pyramid around the time we did," Pyrrha answered. "And your new company?" She looked to the anthropomorphic wolf, who looked away as she partially hid her face. "Her name is Whisper," Ren said before speaking closely to John and Pyrrha. "She's from Sonic's world, but she's not much of a talker and prefers to keep her distance," he said in a subtle tone that his teammates understood. "All right. Well, nice to meet you, Whisper." John gave a friendly wave and a smile, but didn't approach any closer as to show he was respecting her boundaries, which she recognized and appreciated with a nod. A groan caught the group's attention as everyone looked to Bertilik, who had a hard look when he saw Rouge as well as Whisper, something that prompted the bat to walk up to him. "You got a problem with something, big boy." "Yeah, I don't like animals," Bertilik said bluntly, which quickly earned him the ire of all of Team JNPR and Rouge. "Oh, a great. Another bigot." Nora rolled her eyes. Friend of yours, Cardin. She looked to him specifically. We only just met, he replied, but didn't rise up because he knew she was taking a shot at his own bigoted behavior and chose not to respond. Look here, man. John went right up to Bertilac's face as the older man looked down at him. You wanna act all arrogant, go ahead. But you will not speak to my friends and teammates with that kind of disrespect. Why not? You gonna do something about it, kid? Bertilic challenged. Yeah, how's about I beat the ever-living crap out of you? John challenged back. Take your shot, you punk-ass brat. Bertilic raised his arms, gesturing for John to come at him, only for Pyrrha and Carmen to come in between them. Okay, that's enough, Pyrrha said to her partner. Pyrrha. John questioned her intervention. I don't like him either, but we have a mission to complete first. She said to him firmly. We get it done, then we'll settle things with him afterwards. She said with a serious look in her eyes, indicating she was not about to let him get away with his attitude. Keep a cool head, Bertilic. Carmen held his arm firmly. We don't need you throwing another temper tantrum. Back off, Red. He tried to shake her off, but she pulled him down to whisper into his ear. You know the boss's orders. Or do you want to take it up with him again? Carmen said harshly, leaving no room for argument. With a groan, Bertilic relented as he stood up and Carmen let go. But both seemed unaware of Rouge looking at them suspiciously, having heard what Carmen whispered to her partner. Even Whisper looked at the pair questionably. The group soon turned their attention to the central computer with Rouge being the one to access the computer. Good thing the new tenants were able to restore the base's power. Now I just gotta connect back to the egg net. As she typed away, the access login page appeared on the screen. The page had an Eggman logo with a diagonal ring around it with 3 bars on the side. One read, e.g. Nye login, with the username reading, Eggman, on the second bar, and the one the bottom being empty. Password, huh, Ren observed. Think you can hack your way past it? He asked Rouge. Don't need to. The white bat answered. All of his logins are usually a variation of this. She typed in the password. H4T3TH4TH3DG3HOG. Hate that hedgehog. Pyrrha read aloud. Which one? Nora cracked. No way it's that simple. John seemed doubtful. I'm in. Rouge said as the whole screen turned green and red. Access granted. Really? John asked in disbelief as his teammates all blinked in surprise. First try. Yep. Rouge smirked. Wow. Nora commented. Guy really needs to be a bit more creative with his passwords. And more secure. Ren added. Cardin chuckled. You'd think trying to hack into the system of a scientist would be a whole lot harder, huh? John had to stop himself from snorting at that. Even if he didn't like Cardin, he couldn't deny that comment he made was actually pretty funny. Even Pyrrha smiled slightly at that comment too. So, what do we do now? We have access to the egg net, right? Nora asked as Rouge removed her scroll eyepiece and converted it to its normal scroll form to plug it in before pulling Nora in to speak quietly. Our first priority are the Chaos Emeralds. I'm gonna see if I can use the data Tails gave us to try and get the exact location of the one here in Vacuo, and maybe even do the same for the others across Remnant too. But we don't want them getting in on it. She spoke softly and gestured her eyes in the direction of Carmen and Bertilic. Those two are up to something. Okay, got it. Nora nodded in understanding as Rouge got to work and pulled up a map of the region. Okay, looks like Eggman's already mapped out the region. If I can cross-reference this with our data, then we should. Look out. Pyrrha exclaimed as an egg hammer dropped from the ceiling, followed by several egg pawns that emerged from the darkness of the chamber, surrounding the group as they all drew their weapons and even Whisper put her mask on. Great. More robots. Cardin groaned. Where'd they'd come from? Ren questioned. Who cares? Just smash them. Bertilic rushed straight for the egg hammer with his mace, only for said egg hammer to swing and strike Bertilic in the stomach and deliver enough force to send him flying and crashing to the wall on the far side. Form up. Protect Rouge. John ordered as his whole team circled up around the white bat who continued to hack the system. However, when Whisper had her mask on, she noticed something odd. She had turned on the night vision mode the second the badniks appeared to try and find where they entered the dimly lit room. She should have noticed that many robots in one place, even if they were deactivated. But upon activating her Mosque's night V-zone mode, she didn't spot any other possible entry points other than the two she and her allies came in through. Suspecting trickery of some sort, she repeatedly cycled through the different forms of vision such as ultraviolet and infrared, but it was with the latter that she found something. She saw the heat signatures of her comrades, but none of the robots. Even if they didn't have any internal body temperature, infrared should have allowed her to spot their internal power. But she saw nothing. It was like the robots weren't even there. More importantly, she spotted two figures that weren't there before. One was a female at the far side of the chamber with her hands on her head, while the other was a male who was fast approaching the group, leaping high into the air to deliver an aerial kick towards the computer. Acting quickly, Whisper activated her weapon's laser mode as Cyan flew into it, and she fired a cyan laser that shot the attacker before he made contact, who was shot out of the air and landed on the ground. She then aimed her weapon at the female at the back of the chamber and fired, nailing her and blasting her to the wall. The second emerald was hit. She lost control of her hallucinations, causing all the badniks to fade away, revealing they were never there, as well as the downed Mercury as he tried to pull himself up with a groan. What the? Carmen looked stunned, but the former students and Rouge's surprise quickly faded as they spotted the two young enemies of theirs. Well, look what we have here. Rouge teased. Ah, you guys again. Nora exclaimed as Mercury quickly picked himself up and dashed to Emerald, who struggled to pull herself up as well. That one. Whisper spoke, only slightly louder but not by much, to her allies, and pointed to Emerald. Illusions. Of course, I remember her semblance quite well. Hera narrowed her eyes at their enemy. Her semblance causes hallucinations. Carmen looked to Emerald with an intrigued expression. Damn it, Emerald cursed. How did they find us? Who cares? We're spotted. Mercury, the one who had kicked Bertalik when it looked like he was struck by an egg hammer, shook his head. Might as well do it the old-fashioned way. Not a good idea. Ren advised. You're outnumbered and outmatched. Surrender while you can. Mercury clicked his tongue. Yeah, I don't think so. See, once the doc figured out his old base got zapped to our world, he did a little scan and found an old toy of his still here. It was a bit busted up, but still functional. And I'd say now is the time to break it out. He pulled out a trigger and pressed the button on it. Suddenly, the entire floor in the center of the chamber began to open up in a circular motion, allowing for a partially damaged, yet still functional badnik to emerge. It was incredibly large, so much so that only the upper half of its body could fit into the control room. And it appeared to be made almost entirely out of stone, save for some visible repairs that the current tenants of the base Jackal squad likely patched up during their occupation. It had a humanoid face with glowing yellow eyes along with a pharaoh's headdress on it. Team JNPR and their allies all looked up in shock at what they were seeing, while Rouge's eyelids lowered. Aw damn it, it's an egg golem. Yep, and I'd say he's pretty cranky from sleeping for so long. Mercury grinned. Sick M. The egg golem raised its enormous stone fist, before bringing it down towards the group, forcing them to scatter and avoid the impact. Though the computer remained undamaged, as John, who had landed flat on the ground, noticed along with Rouge's scroll still attached to it. We need that data, or this was all for nothing. He stated mentally before addressing everyone. Rouge, you need to keep working. You stick with the computer. Whisper, Cardin, watch her back. Team JNPR, we're taking on the big guy. Understood. Hera called back as she looked to Ren and Nora, both of whom nodded with her. Good plan, kid. You just watch yourself. Rouge warned as she flew back to the computer while Whisper and Cardin went to guard her. You two wanna help. John looked to Carmen and the recovering Bertalik. Keep those two off our backs. He gestured to Emerald and Mercury, only to gasp as Mercury suddenly appeared behind him very quickly. Too late. He gave a powerful kick to John, followed with a blast from the upgraded Tauria boots to kick him across the chamber. Suddenly, Mercury was coated in a golden aura and telekinetically lifted into the air before being flung into the wall near the ceiling, all courtesy of the semblance wielded by Carmen. You're fast, boy, but not fast enough, she smirked. But she lost her telekinetic grip on him when Emerald had Thief's Respite out and fired at Carmen, forcing her to link her say together with a staff and spin her weapon out in front of her, the lightning dust glowing and activating to generate an electric shield to protect her from the attacks. But before Emerald could press, Bertalik was already on her as he swung his mace down at her, which she flipped to avoid before shooting at him, but the large man moved faster than she expected and swung his arm at her to knock her along the side of the wall. "Those two are good," Nora commented as her teammates regrouped together. "And that just leaves us with that," Ren said, referring to the looming egg golem. "Come on, guys. We got this. Let's show this overgrown statue what Team JNPR can do," John declared as he held Crocia Morse up high. "We'll follow your lead." Hira smiled as she too drew Milo and Akoo and they faced the egg golem together. Back outside, more bolts of energy rained down from wings of the hovering Egg Sphinx, forcing Team CFVY to scatter with Omega while Shadow zoomed across the ground, moving past each bolt before appearing directly under the Egg Sphinx and teleported onto its right front leg, driving Arondite into it before spinning rapidly with the handle of his sword, gathering more momentum and power with each spin before yanking out Arondite and delivering a powerful spindish at the joint of the right wing. This didn't sever the wing, but it did cause enough damage that the entire mech lost its function in the wing and was forced to land on the ground. "Ah, you little." Eggman growled from inside. "Don't think that me being on the ground gives you the advantage." Long bladed claws extended from the front paws of the Egg Sphinx and were suddenly lit ablaze before slashing rapidly at Shadow, who dodged and teleported to avoid each strike before delivering a homing attack to the head unit. And though the Egg Sphinx recoiled slightly, it also turned around rapidly to swing its tail towards Shadow, striking him and sending the black hedgehog crashing through the wall on the left side of the courtyard. Eggman didn't get a chance to celebrate, however, as multiple explosions erupted from his unit's left side, all courtesy of the fire dust missiles from Omega and hyped-up bullets from Cocos Janduya and Semblance. "Didn't forget about us, did you, Doc?" Coco challenged. "Your machine will be reduced to scrap with all the rest, Eggman," Omega declared. "What is it with this world producing more super-powered kids?" Eggman complained. "No matter, I'll just destroy you too." The fully functional left wing shined as more bolts of energy were shot out towards Omega and Coco, who dodged however they could. "Take out the joint," Coco ordered. "Do it now." On cue, Velvet had climbed up to the top of the wall on the right side of the courtyard and used Anisadora to create a hardlight copy of Floating Array. Much like with their original owner, the hardlight blades all came together in a perfect circle, their tips pointing forward as a surge of cyan blue energy appeared before a bright and powerful beam of energy was shot out, heading directly for the joint on the left wing, creating a series of explosions that caused the whole wing to be set ablaze and the force pushing Eggman's mech back. "He's vulnerable. Attack now," Coco shouted as Yatsuhashi and Fox dashed for the Egg Sphinx. Fox went for the right front leg as he drew sharp retribution again and sliced at it rapidly while Yatsuhashi leapt up into the air, lifted Fulcrum up high and brought it down on the left front leg and was able to shatter the whole foot. However, Eggman retaliated by having the right leg slice its fire claws at Yatsuhashi and Fox to knock them both back. This also left the Egg Sphinx open for Omega, Coco, and Velvet to focus their firepower on the face of the Egg Sphinx, Omega firing streams of lightning, Coco using Janduya and her hyped Semblance, and Velvet still using hardlight copies of Floating Array. "Concentrate your attacks on the head," Omega exclaimed. "Our combined destructive power will break through his defenses." "Oh no you don't." Eggman pushed his mech forward, the Egg Sphinx dashing through the barrage of literal firepower and ramming all three of them and throwing his mech's face up to send all three of them straight up. Omega quickly grabbed Coco and Velvet with both his arms as the Egg Sphinx swiped its tail at them, but Omega swiftly turned around, with aid from his rear jet boosters, to have his back take the impact and avoid the two young women in his arms from getting the worst of the strike as they fell and slammed hard on the ground with Omega throwing them away just in time. "Oh ho ho ho," the Mad Doctor laughed. "You brats put up a good fight, but even your precious semblances and tools pale in comparison to my power. This is the sheer strength that is the genius of Dr. Eggman." Suddenly, the whole head of the Egg Sphinx jerked as something had struck it in the neck area, something that caused multiple alerts to pop up on the screens of Eggman's cockpit. "What? The neck's damaged? But that's been armored up to prevent the likes of Sonic or Shadow from reaching that. How could?" A glowing red blade was pierced through the top of Eggman's cockpit, causing him to screech in surprise before the sword was sliced in multiple directions to carve an opening, revealing none other than Zero. The great Dr. Eggman, your new mech will do us well to make new weapons. And your head will make an excellent trophy on my wall. Zero prepared to lunge the blade at him. But Eggman was quicker to act by activating his suit's gravity dust barrier, causing the red blade to deflect against the purple barrier now surrounding Eggman, much to Zero's shock. Eggman then pulled out long memory and aimed the cane forward, pressing the trigger to shoot a blast of energy that struck the surprised Zero and sent him soaring away from his mech. Eggman looked to long memory once again with a sneer. So much energy inside something so small. Oh yes, I can definitely use you. Zero was sent flying through the air as he prepared to brace himself for a hard landing, but was quickly caught by his hand from one of his teammates. Zero. Catra called to him as he and the rest of Jackal's squad were now riding in what was left of the Egg Walker, now currently hovering in the air and piloted by Twa. Zero was pulled in as Catra and Uno helped him up. We need to retreat, Uno stated. Are you kidding me? Look at that epic battle down there. Duex pointed to the ongoing brawl. Have you ever seen anything more beautiful? As much as I'd love to salvage and reuse the tech from that thing, Twa began, referring to the Egg Sphinx. We can't do anything if we're dead. They're right. We're tough, but the greatest warriors know when to retreat. Catra stated. Zero turned to the battlefield as he narrowed his eyes at the Egg Sphinx. Pull back, but not too far. I have an idea. Suddenly, the Egg Sphinx was struck in its damaged face area by a homing attack from the recovered Shadow, who proceeded to spin all around it and deliver multiple rapid homing attacks and sword slashes with Arondite before pulling back mid-air with boosts from his air shoes and then delivered an extra powerful spindash to push the Egg Sphinx back several paces. The recovering Team CFVY as well as Omega watched as Shadow the Hedgehog landed on the ground in front of them all, facing the Egg Sphinx. You've done considerable damage, Shadow said to them all. Press on that. We're not finished here. Coco smirked as she was the first to stand back up and by the Black Hedgehog's side. Shadow, was it? I think I'm starting to like you. What's the play? Back inside, Team JNPR ran around the rampaging egg golem as they tried to engage it however they could. Ren, Pyrrha, and Nora had their respective weapons converted into their gun modes as they fired bullets and explosives at the stone-like robot, but it tanked each of their long-ranged attacks before chopping one hand down in front of Ren and Pyrrha on one side, and the other being chopped in front of John and Nora on the other side. It then began to spin itself around, sweeping its hands as John and Pyrrha used their respective shields to protect themselves and their teammates, but the egg golem proved to be too strong as it swept up all four of the former Beacon students and sent them crashing into the walls. At the same time, Emerald and Mercury were locked in a heated battle against Carmen and Bertilic, with Emerald swinging her hook weapons at Carmen, who blocked and countered each strike with her dual say, while Mercury dashed around Bertilic and delivered a spinning kick to the back of the big man's head, which did briefly knock him back. But when Mercury followed through with a double kick, Bertilic caught Mercury's feet in between his arm and side and brought his mace down onto Mercury to knock him down. This proved to be a mistake as it gave Mercury a chance to not only deliver a double kick on Bertilac's face, but also a chance to perform his vortex-like attack as he spun his feet around rapidly, which were moving even faster than before as a series of air gusts emerged from the soles of his prosthetic feet not too dissimilar from Shadow's air shoes, and he began to kick up spheres of electrical power, courtesy of the lightning dust he had inside. He spun around so fast that it looked like an electric tornado was forming around Mercury. Bertilic braced himself as Mercury gave a sweeping kick that sent the electric tornado straight for him. Unable to avoid it, Bertilic took the hit, which sent him up in an explosion of electrical power. At the same time, Emerald had her weapons locked and caught in between the blade and prongs of Carmilla's Sei, who used her own semblance to shoot her Sei straight up like missiles, depriving Emerald of Thief's respite and leaving her open to deliver a palm strike into her stomach. Carmilla then caught Emerald with her telekinesis, coating the girl in a golden aura before flinging into the wall and pinning her there. Your head's not in the game, is it? Carmilla could tell from the look in Emerald's eyes that her mind was elsewhere. A shame. You got talent, especially that semblance of yours. If you were focused, you'd actually have a chance. But, I know someone who can definitely put your power to good use. Mercury suddenly appeared dashed just below Carmilla, sliding along the ground, and kicked her in the jaw, forcing her to drop her semblance and hold on Emerald, as well as her weapons as they all fell to the ground. with Mercury kicking the falling thief's respite back to Emerald, which she recovered while Mercury landed a double kick on Carmilla, shooting a blast of lightning at her to push her back, and while she was caught in that, Emerald fired the chained hooks of Thief's Respite to hook Carmilla by the shoulders and retracted the chains to pull her back to where Mercury followed through with a rapid spinning kick into Carmilla's face to smash her into the wall. "We have to stop them from getting to that computer." Emerald pointed to RWBY as she continued to work at the central computer, only for both her and Mercury to be blown to the sides by an orange rocket shot at them by Whisper as she and Cardin kept RWBY covered. "Hey, how's it going over there?" Cardin asked as RWBY typed away at the console and data continued to download into her scroll. "Almost done," the white bat muttered. Whisper decided to focus her attention on Mercury. Even if that Emerald girl could create hallucinations, her mask could see through them and Cardin would voice a warning if he saw it coming. But Mercury appeared to be the fastest and could clear the distance quickly enough. Her Wispin switched from its rocket mode to laser mode as she fired a cyan energy beam at Mercury, which did graze his side as he tried to move out of the way, causing his aura to flash. "Ah, the hell kind of weapon is that?" He held his side and was forced to duck as Whisper shot another laser at him before he zoomed straight for the wall to avoid another laser blast and then kicked from that wall to dodge yet another laser blast. Kicking the soles of his feet, he activated the air shoes function as it allowed him to hover in the air before muffler-like extensions emerged from his ankles, taking the appearance of small wings as they glowed yellow with lightning dust. This allowed Mercury not only the ability to fly, but even move 3 times as fast than he ever did before. So fast that he not only dodged the next laser beam from Whisper but even went straight for the computer with RWBY still working on it. "Look out." Cardin pulled RWBY away as she yanked her scroll out just in time while Mercury gave an airborne cartwheel kick to smash the entire computer. He was then struck in the side by the cube mode of Whisper's Wispin, which did send him rolling on the ground. But he quickly recovered and kicked up his feet to send an electric energy ball at Whisper to push her back. When Mercury followed through with another cartwheel kick, gunning for Whisper's head while he was down, RWBY had recovered and flew in quickly to block his kick with her leg. "Someone's upgraded." RWBY smirked as she performed her screw kick technique to spin around and knock Mercury's leg back as well as leave him open for Whisper to strike him in the stomach with her Wispin's cube mode. "Let's see how well you know how to use those new toys of yours." RWBY flexed her hands. As Whisper and RWBY engaged in battle with Mercury, Cardin looked ready to join in, only for Emerald to catch him by shoulder with the chained hooks of one of her weapons and pull him into where she slashed at him with her other weapon. Though Cardin did block it with the Executioner, he was still left open for Emerald to kick him in the chest and sweep her feet to knock him to the ground. She tried to bring Thief's Respite down onto his face, but Cardin caught it with the pole of his weapon while he was down. Meanwhile, Nora slammed her hammer at the side of the egg golem, but it did minimal damage and was forced to jump back to avoid its fist that was smashed down where she was. Kiro threw a Ko out like a frisbee to the face of the egg golem, making sure her shield struck the eyes before using her polarity to pull her shield back to her. That's when Kiro noticed some sparks around the eye area, though they quickly faded as the egg golem directed its attention towards her and pulled back its head before smashing it into the ground, though Kiro dashed away quickly enough as Team JNPR regrouped. "Its armor is too tough. We can't break through," Ren said. "I might be able to do if I get an extra charge." Nora put in. "Its eyes are vulnerable though," Kira informed. "If we blind it, we may have a chance." "Okay, I got it. Time for our team blast," John declared as the egg golem recovered. "Ren, Kira, focus on both its eyes, each of you takes one out. Nora, once they're out of the way, destroy its face." "Sounds like a plan," Nora smirked while Ren and Kira nodded seriously. The egg golem then turned to face the team of former students as they readied themselves. "Griffin's airstrike. Now," John ordered. Nora took out a cartridge of lightning dust, which she jammed into her own side and sent a powerful electric charge through her body. This caused her strength to increase substantially as she grunted, grabbing Ren and Kira by their backs with one hand each and threw them both up as high as she could. They both soared straight up, almost hitting the ceiling of the large chamber and appearing directly above the egg golem as it looked right up at them. Ren aimed Storm Flower and focused all his bullets into the left eye, shooting and tearing through it. While Pyrrha converted Milo into its javelin and threw it into the right eye, piercing through before she pulled her spear back with her semblance. The egg golem was now effectively blind as Pyrrha and Ren both fell. Once they were out of the way, Nora used her currently enhanced strength to leap into the air and swing Monhild hard into the face of the egg golem, cracking it hard before she pulled her trigger and fired a point-blank rocket to blow off its face, exposing all the machinery and circuitry inside as it fell to its hands, lowering itself and leaving it open for John to move in himself. He had spotted something that looked important in its now exposed head, a cluster of wires all connecting to a single unit, which he sliced in half with a mighty swing of Crocea Morse. John stepped back and regrouped with his team as they saw the egg golem fall flat on its face, completely deactivated. Its lack of movement indicated that it was indeed defeated. Griffin's airstrike, Ren said with a slight smile. Not bad, especially for our first time using it in direct combat. Heck yeah, that's how Team JNPR does it. Boom. Nora ran up to kick the head of the defeated egg golem. You like that? Well done, team leader. Pyrrha put a congratulatory hand on John's shoulder and nodded to him with a smile. John smiled back. Thanks, but we're not done yet, he said as he got serious again. Cardin swung Executioner around rapidly at Emerald, who dodged and blocked each and every one of his attacks. And when he tried to swing down with one attack, Emerald caught his weapon with the hooks of Thief's Respite before slicing to slash at Cardin's hands and knock the weapon away from him before kicking him down. Stay down. She aimed her guns at him. Take your own advice. John came at her from behind to swing Crocea Morse at him, and while she blocked it with Thief's Respite, he pushed forward with his shield to push her off Cardin and overpower her with strength alone. Emerald rolled along the ground and soon found herself surrounded by Ren and Nora as they circled around her with John and the recovering Cardin. At the same time, Rouge performed multiple kicks against Mercury, who retaliated with kicks of their own. When their feet met, Mercury shot an electric blast at Rouge, who flew backwards to avoid it as she drew purple hearts and threw them at him, with Mercury kicking them away. Whoa. Mercury just barely limboed backwards to avoid a pink energy buzzsaw being shot at him by Whisper. She rushed Mercury as another pink energy buzzsaw appeared at the tip of her Wispin and she slashed at him, which Mercury just barely dodging it as he stepped backwards, only for Rouge to come in and land a double kick at him and knock him down. But Mercury recovered as he landed on his hands and performed another series of rapid vortex kicks, generating another electric vortex which he sent at the two. But before either of them could react, Pyrrha stepped in front with Milo held forward as she channeled as much of her polarity into her shield as she could, as well as her gauntlets for good measure, just as the electric tornado hit. And the second it made contact, the electricity was washed over Pyrrha's shield as it was spread out in various directions, not affecting Pyrrha in the slightest. What? Mercury exclaimed in shock. You spied on us at Beacon, so you must be well aware of my polarity at this point, correct? Pyrrha began. But what you probably don't know is just how intimately connected electricity and magnetism are. One such example is how magnetism can even deflect electrical currents, just like what you used. A mocking smirk appeared on her face. For a spy, you're not very well read. Mercury growled in anger, but when it looked like he was about to continue fighting, something hard hit him on the side to smash him into the already ruined computer. The one who hit him was none other than a growling Bertilik. And before he could get up, a pair of sai flew in to pin his arms into the computer's remains, his wrists being caught in between the blade and prong. All courtesy of Carmilla using her telekinesis on her own weapons, the girl having a condescending smirk of her own. Looking past them, Mercury saw Pyrrha, Rouge, and Whisper by their side and ready to continue fighting. And on his right, was Emerald, who was surrounded on all sides by John, Cardin, Ren, and Nora. One would think she could use her semblance to get them out of this, but they were somehow able to see past her hallucinations, likely from that fancy mask the wolf girl wore. It seemed like they would be defeated, until he remembered what Eggman had told him. I would rather see my base in ruins than in the hands of the enemy. I can always rebuild. But if you can't beat those guys on your own, blow it all up. Mercury wondered why Eggman didn't just blow up this base before instead of just abandoning it and practically inviting his enemies to take it over. Ah well, no point in think on it now. Using the same trigger that he used to summon the egg golem, Mercury let it slide into his hand, despite being pinned, and pressed another button on it. Self-destruct is now engaged. An automated voice sounded over the speakers and echoed throughout the chamber, surprising everyone inside of it. Pyramid Base will be destroyed in 3 minutes. With everyone distracted, Mercury activated the air shoes in his prosthetic feet and propelled himself in the air, wrenching himself free from Carmilla's sides, and kicked an electric ball towards Rouge and her group, and another at John's group near Emerald, who shielded herself with her arms before Mercury flew in to grab her and fly straight up. "We're outta here." Mercury kicked another electric blast at the ceiling above, blasting a hole and allowing for the two to escape. "Hey, since when can that guy fly?" Nora exclaimed. "Nora, we have bigger problems right now," Ren alerted. 2 minutes isn't enough time to get us out of here," Rouge said. "You know this base, can't you cancel the self-destruct?" John questioned. If the computer was still working, sure, but Rouge gestured to the now destroyed computer. Kiro looked around for anything they could use to get them out. She figured she could help everyone to escape with her Fall Maiden abilities. But that would reveal said powers to Carmilla and Bertilik, two strangers they know nothing about. Her eyes then set on the downed egg golem before they widened in realization. "I have an idea." Back outside, Shadow repeatedly zipped around the Egg Sphinx, going for repeated homing attacks near the head area as well as dashing across its back. Using his super speed and teleportation in conjunction to avoid Eggman locking onto him for even a split second. He even performed a spindish with Arondite and went for the right wing joint, the one attacked before, and completely severed it this time around. If the Egg Sphinx wasn't grounded before, it certainly was now. Darn rodent. Hold still already. Eggman couldn't even find a way to lock onto Shadow. And with the wings of his mech damaged, he couldn't retaliate with any long-ranged attacks. But with Eggman too focused on Shadow, it left him vulnerable for Omega and Team CFVY to make their move. Omega, Yatsuhashi, and Velvet each went for the legs of the Egg Sphinx, excluding the right front leg that Yatsuhashi already destroyed and acted simultaneously. Just like before, Yatsuhashi leapt into the air and held Fulcrum up high above the left front leg. Omega followed a similar manner, using his jet boosters to essentially jump above the rear right leg as he raised both his fists, and Nora jumped up with a hardlight construct of Monhild held up high herself over the rear left leg. All three came back down at the same time and delivered enough force with each of their strikes to completely smash or irreparably damage the remaining 3 legs. "Gah!" Eggman exclaimed as he felt his whole vessel rock and saw all the alarms pop up all around his cockpit. "The legs are down. I can't move." Shadow then landed on the ground, where he met Coco and Fox as they ran directly underneath the now immobile Egg Sphinx, specifically near the neck area that was heavily armored. Shadow looked to Coco and nodded as he grabbed Fox's hand, who nodded to him. Coco aimed Janduya straight up. Off with its head. She fired her mini-gun, using her height semblance to enhance the power of the dust bullets as they tore through the armor around the neck. Once enough of the armor was chipped away and a big enough opening was made, Shadow used his air shoes to boost himself and Fox straight up. Utilizing a similar method he saw Sonic and RWBY use against Eggman before back in Vale, Shadow spun them both like a corkscrew with their respective blades pointing up as they shot straight up. Slash. Asterisk. Shadow and Fox appeared high in midair, well above the Egg Sphinx, Arondite and sharp retribution held outward, and before either could fall, the Egg Sphinx's head fell off completely. Damn it all. Eggman cursed as he pressed the eject button, causing the egg mobile to pop out of his mech's head unit before flying away from the scene just as Shadow held Fox while falling and teleported them both back to the ground, where they and the rest of their teammates watched what was left of the Egg Sphinx fall apart. Most satisfactory, Omega stated. Shadow nodded towards Team CFVY. Well done. You expect anything less. Coco tipped her sunglasses as Velvet, Fox, and Yatsuhashi exchanged high fives with each other. The Black Hedgehog really meant it. When it came to teamwork, Team CFVY was well coordinated. They had the experience, and the knowledge on how to best apply their arsenal, as well as trust in each other. They could indeed be valued additions against Eggman and Salem, should he and the others to decide to let them in on it. A topic to discuss later though. For now, John, Rouge, and the others should. Boom. Asterisk. A loud explosion erupted from the top of pyramid base, alerting everyone as they saw multiple explosions going off at various locations throughout the structure. And the more the explosions tore through the insides of the base, the more it began to collapse in on itself. What? Yatsujishi exclaimed. Multiple internal explosions. Omega reported. Likely from pre-placed explosives planted by either Eggman or Jackal Squadron. Velvet gasped in horror and realization as she covered her mouth. John and everyone are still in there. Shadow already dashed his way towards the pyramid, only to look in surprise as he saw something resembling a large flaming boulder come flying out and soaring towards the courtyard, landing with a powerful thud and created a crater upon impact. Shadow teleported back to Omega and Team CFVY as they went closer to inspect what had landed. It appeared to be a large, headless statue that was also missing its lower half, and both of its arms folded inward like it was holding something precious. The arms were forced apart, all courtesy of Kiro with her polarity semblance as she, the rest of her team, along with Rouge, Whisper, Carmen and Bertilik were all huddled together and pressed against the stone body of what was left of the egg golem. Is everyone okay? Kira asked as she picked herself up. Everyone groaned as they tried to do the same, while Nora appeared the dizziest of them all as she got up with a shaky smile and felt unstable with her legs. That was pretty awesome. She would have fallen over had Kira not caught her. Yeah, let's not do that again anytime soon. Ren slid off the side of the egg golem with John by his side. John, are you alright? No. He felt his cheeks bulge as something came up before running to the other side of the egg golem and threw up, causing most around him to cringe with sympathy or disgust. Ah, so that's why everyone called you Vomit Boy back at Beacon. Rouge commented with a teasing smile, to which John just pointed at her as he stood up straight. What happened? Are you guys okay? Velvet asked as Team JNPR, Whisper, and Cardin climbed their way out of the crater with their upperclassmen provided some helping hands. Even Velvet offered Cardin a hand, which he accepted as she gave a smile and a nod, which he returned with a nod of his own. The base was self-destructing, Kira explained. But we also recently defeated an old badnik, she gestured to the remains of the egg golem, so I used my polarity on it for a makeshift shield. Even though it looks like it's made out of stone? Yatsuhashi asked. It had metallic joints and circuitry on the inside. Kira said. Quite resourceful. You'd make a killer jewel thief. Rouge complimented as she patted Kira on the back, causing her to smile. Shadow nodded, but that's when he took notice of the anthropomorphic wolf that was beside them, who had her wisps reveal themselves as she appeared to check on their status and well-being. Whisper felt a gaze in her direction and turned to make eye contact with Shadow. Right away, she felt very apprehensive, something Shadow noticed, but also saw Whisper calming down, or rather forcing herself to calm down. Who is this? Shadow inquired. This is Whisper, we found her inside the pyramid. John explained. She's from Sonic's world. She's also a bit shy and not too good with crowds, so give her some space. Rouge added, to which Coco nodded in understanding. Ah, who are these little guys? Velvet gushed as she looked towards the wisps, who flew towards her and everyone else in Team CFVY. Yatsuhashi and even Coco couldn't help but smile at these adorable little critters. They're so cute. Really? Guess I'll just have to take your word for it. Fox joked. They are wisps. Omega identified. An energy-based extraterrestrial race. More aliens, huh? Coco asked. But they're on our side. Rouge said as the wisps flew back to join Whisper. Sonic saved their world from Eggman a while back, long story. And it looks like these guys are with Whisper. But don't let their cute little looks fool you, they pack a serious punch. Nora then slowly approached Whisper, making sure to kneel a bit closer to her level while also keeping a respectful distance. Hey, look, it's okay if you want to work alone. But, I think it's safe to say, you're not in your world anymore. And you're not exactly a fan of Eggman either. So, how about you come with us? I promise, we'll respect your boundaries, but you could use some help, people who know this world. That, and you're also kinda now in the middle of an ongoing war with some pretty nasty people other than Eggman. You don't have to join us in fighting them if you don't want to, but we could use the help. If anything, we can at least give you a place to rest until you figure things out. Is that alright with you? She offered Whisper her hand. Whisper listened and contemplated everything Nora just said. It was true, she was in a whole new world she knew nothing of. She scouted that vacuo city a little bit before to get a vibe of the area, but she wasn't able to get much intel from it. So having some backup and a place to stay in the middle of a desert was a good idea. She had mixed feelings with present company though, specifically a certain black hedgehog, even if he wasn't the same as them. All 5 of her wisps floated around her and communicated with her in their native language, with Whisper somehow able to understand them. "You think so?" she asked, looking to the orange wisp specifically, who nodded before turning back to Nora and accepting her hand. "Okay. Welcome to the team, Whisper." Nora smiled. "Well, it definitely looks like the rest of you were busy," Ren observed, looking at what was left of the Egg Sphinx. "Eggman showed up," Coco said, "but we kicked his butt." "What about those occupying the base?" Rouge asked. "They identified themselves as Jackal Squadron," Omega answered. "They appear to hail from our world. They seemed skilled in combat and robotics, although not a significant threat level. It would be smart not to underestimate them." "And you? What happened on your end?" Shadow looked to John, the blonde sighed before answering. "Mercury and Emerald showed up, along with that thing." He gestured to the remains of the egg golem. "They smashed the computer, we couldn't get any intel." "You sure about that?" Rouge held up her scroll, surprising many of her allies. "I wasn't able to hack into the egg net or create a virtual backdoor or anything, but I did use the computer systems to narrow down the data Tails gave us. And thanks to that," she pressed a button, showing an emerald icon on the map of the region. "I know exactly where the Chaos Emerald here is in Vacuo." "No way," Nora exclaimed with a wild grin as everyone looked more than a little happy and excited about it. "And the best part, since those guys trashed their computer in the base, they won't be able to trace us either, so we got a head start on them." Rouge grinned. "So, we keep pressing. Go after this emerald thing while we have that head start?" Cardin asked. "No, we should report back to Theodore." John shook his head. "He knows Vacuo better than all of us and could probably tell us more about the spot the emerald landed in. We shouldn't rush in blind." "I was thinking the same thing," Coco said. Shadow nodded as well, with Kira smiling, proud of how mature John was acting, not just with his growth as a leader, but also his willingness to cooperate with Theodore and everyone else in Ozpin's circle. "One question though, what do we do about?" Ren was about to look to where he would find 2 certain huntsmen, only to find that both Carmen and Bertilik were gone, much to his and the surprise of his own team, along with Rouge and Cardin, with even Whisper narrowing her already squinted eyes. "Do about what?" Velvet asked. "We ran into a pair of huntsmen while we're inside," Kira answered. "But they weren't sent by Theodore. I did not like those 2, something about them seemed odd." John commented. "Yeah, those guys were up to something," Rouge confirmed seriously. "And I doubt we've seen the last of them." Carmen and Bertilik rode in a Humvee through the desert sands, driving away from the now destroyed pyramid base. Carmen was at the wheel, and while her partner looked especially irritated. "Oh, don't pout, it wasn't that bad," she said. "You kidding? It was a disaster," Bertilik exclaimed. "Anything we could salvage from that base is now either buried or burnt to a crisp. If you thought the bosses would be unhappy before, they won't be happy with this. It wasn't our fault. It was the fault of those reckless students that Theodore had sent," Carmen said with a knowing smile. "We'll tell the twins that and they'll take the blame. And if we tell them that we spotted the legendary Pyrenicos in their ranks," she smiled sinisterly. "She'll definitely make an excellent crownsman. I know Jillian would like her. Hell, that other girl with that illusionary semblance would certainly be useful." "What about those animals? Those clearly weren't faunus," Bertilik pointed out. "And that black rodent looked awfully close to that so-called golden hero that everyone's talking about." Before Carmen could make a response, a missile was fired right in front of their Humvee, flipping the vehicle over and sending both her and Bertilik flying and crashing face first in the sand. The 2 rogue huntsmen pulled their faces up from the desert sand as they looked straight up to the one who shot them, hovering inside his Eggmobile with Emerald and Mercury sitting with him. "These are the 2 you say?" Eggman asked Mercury, specifically. "Yep," he confirmed. "Heard them even mention a boss, too. When you're raised by a dirtbag, you know to spot others a mile away. And these look so dirty they may as well have been knee-deep into it." "Is that so?" Eggman mused as he twirled his mustache. Hey, Emerald got his attention. Isn't that one of your ships? Eggman turned to see the makeshift Eggmobile, one that was currently operated by the Jackal squad, arrive on the scene as their leader stepped off it. Dr. Zero greeted professionally. I remember you. Eggman glared. So nice of you to walk straight into your execution. I don't take people who try to decapitate me lightly. Well, can you blame me for trying? Zero shrugged. Not every day you get to test your might against a legend like yourself. That is true. Eggman smirked. But if you think flattery will save you from a fiery and painful death, then how about an ally who can actually match the likes of Shadow the Hedgehog in combat? Zero offered. Eggman's eyebrow cocked at that. He remembered seeing Shadow clash against this Jackal just before his arrival. Heck, that very same Jackal was able to get close enough to him to try and land a fatal strike, no easy task. I'm listening, he mused. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Zero, leader of Jackal squad. He gestured to his teammates behind him in the hovering vehicle. We are the strongest mercenaries on our planet. Even the likes of Gun couldn't catch us. We seek all kinds of treasures, as well as worthy opponents to test our strength against. And one such opponent is now before us. If you hire us, you'll have more muscle than you could need. All I ask for in return, is a shot at a rematch against Shadow. I can't believe we're actually doing this. Working for this weakling, Duex whispered to his teammates. I do not like it either, but it is the smart move, as opposed to fighting the likes of Shadow and Eggman at the same time. Uno whispered back. We do have a higher chance eliminating them both if it's one at a time. Twa agreed. And if we actually manage to off Eggman, all his tech and resources will be ours. You make sound fighting Eggman or Shadow to be so easy. That would be a tall order even for us. Catra countered. Our leader has spoken, though. We must follow his lead. Uno stated. Fine. Duex and Catra grumbled. I suppose having a few extra pawns couldn't hurt. What the heck? You're hired. Eggman told Zero, who smiled evilly. You won't regret this, Doctor. He bowed. I'd better not, or it'll be your head on my wall. Eggman warned before turning back to Bertilik and Carmen as they stood up clearly. Now, you two are going to tell me all about who you're working for and led me there. And if we don't? Bertilik questioned. Eggman's response was to produce as many of guns and missiles from the Eggmobile as several targeting beams lined up on the two rogue huntsmen. What do you think? I'd listen to the guy. You do not want to be on his bad side. Mercury warned. Carmen and Bertilik exchanged looks with each other. Neither of them really liked their current position, to put it mildly. But it seemed like they didn't have much of a choice. Fine. Carmen growled. Mistral, Pine residence. Oscar hadn't gotten any sleep in the last 2 days. He just stared up at the ceiling as he laid flat in his bed. He hadn't even packed anything for the move. His aunt had done all the packing, and it seemed like they were ready to go. Except that Oscar hadn't moved from his spot on the bed in the past couple days. He had barely eaten anything even. The door to his room opened as Amelia stepped, looking to her nephew with concern. Oscar, we're all packed up. It's time to go. Sure, all three of us, you mean? Oscar said blankly. Amelia sat down on the bed next to him as she looked to the open door that led into his bathroom with the mirror clearly visible. You gonna just hide there forever? Oscar happened to sit up, allowing his reflection to be seen in the mirror, only for Ozpin's own transparent reflection to appear over it. To be clear, I'm not actually in the mirror. Ozpin said, his voice echoing through both Oscar and Amelia's minds. This is merely a projection of sorts that allows me to better communicate with those around my current host. That is until you eat up my nephew from the inside out and take over his body. Amelia said with no attempt to hide her spite and anger, which Ozpin did not fault her for. After a few hours of calming the pair of nephew and aunt down when they first saw him, he tried to explain the situation to them as amicably as he could. And in doing so, he had to explain to them his origin of being a reincarnated warrior who is waging a secret war against the Master of the Grim, a humanoid Grim witch named Salem, alongside the other headmasters of each academy and a handful of huntsmen. Needless to say, it was a lot for them to take in. And even after a couple days, it was clearly hard for both of them to process. Poor Oscar was scared out of his mind and Amelia was beyond furious. Technically speaking, I would be eaten up as well. Ozpin said. He also had to explain to them the process of his reincarnation involved the eventual merging of Ozpin's soul with his next incarnation, this case being Oscar himself. And that was what really made Ilia mad. Again, Ozpin could not fault her for it. Ilia kicked the nearby wall so hard that she cracked it, causing Oscar to wince. Oscar is not a huntsman. He's got no semblance. He hasn't unlocked his aura. He's not remotely interested in fighting. The most he's ever used is a hatchet or a shovel against a small Grim. Why did you have to pop into him? Why couldn't you have reincarnated into some veteran? Why not one of the other headmasters? Someone who works for you. As I have said, I have no more control in my current predicament than you do. Ozpin replied. I do not choose who I reincarnate into, or when the process happens. Nor can I leave the body. Can you at least tell how long until it happens? Oscar muttered, to which Ilia looked to her nephew in pity. The process of our souls merging is not an exact science. However, the longest it's taken for the process to be completed has been 4 years. And that's only if I don't use any of my own abilities. Ozpin answered. He saw Oscar put his hands on his face, all the stress and fear was clearly eating away at him. Ilia sat down by her nephew's side and pulled him in with both her arms, trying to provide what comfort she could. I am truly sorry, Oscar. Believe me, if I could leave your body, I would without hesitation. Neither of them said anything in response, and he didn't expect them to. He didn't blame either one of them for being scared or resenting him. They were just a normal family who were about to be thrust into a conflict that has destroyed so many other families like theirs in the past. But as much as he hated to bring them into this, he had to know what was going on. From what he gathered, his reincarnation is far more recent than it has before. If any of his allies were still around, he had to find them. He couldn't abandon them. And he needed to know what happened at Beacon. The last he remembered was Eggman's invasion. He still had no idea of the outcome of the battle. I've noticed that you're planning on leaving, Ozpin spoke softly, referring to the packed suitcases around them. May I ask the reason why? Perhaps I can help. I don't want any help from you. Ilia looked at his projection in the mirror, glaring at him with as much hostility as he could muster. Miss Pines, I know our current circumstance paints me as the villain here, and I do not blame you for thinking that way. But, I want to help you. Please, Ozpin pleaded. Oscar sat up somewhat straight as he gave his answer. We're leaving Mistral, moving to Vale. Ilia turned to her nephew in surprise. Why would he tell him that? And the reason for that? Ozpin inquired. Oscar, Ilia tried to stop him. Aunt M, he stopped her. I can't explain it, but I think he's telling the truth. She looked at him in surprise and confusion. It's like, I can feel what he's feeling, like some kind of empathy, only more inward. He tried to explain it as best as he could. And, if he's really Professor Ozpin, the greatest and most powerful huntsman in the world. I wouldn't go that far. Ozpin tried to sound humble, only for the glaring Ilia to point to the mirror, silently telling him to shut up. Him playing the humble hero act seemed to piss her off even more. Maybe he can help, Oscar tried. Ilia rolled her eyes before explaining the situation to Ozpin. Mistral's become a mess. Ever since the attack on Beacon, specifically the White Fang attacking it, Faunus racism has shot through the roof. Tensions are high, so high that Grim activity is getting worse. What of the local huntsmen? Ozpin asked. All of them have been called back to the main city. Ilia answered, much to Ozpin's surprise. Any nearby villages are still protected. But all the outlying towns and villages have pretty much been abandoned. Some are already being attacked. We're getting out before the Grim come here, and we can't count on any huntsman to save us. Argus is still protected though. Oscar added. It's got an Atlas military base there, so. I am truly sorry. Ozpin had the decency to look ashamed and pity. You're friends with the guy who runs Haven Academy, right? Any reason why he'd abandon us? Ilia questioned. I do not believe Leonardo Lionheart would abandon anyone. Ozpin quickly said. If I had to guess, I'd say the council has more or less declared martial law in the city of Mistral. Given who one of the councilors is, it wouldn't have surprised me if that were indeed the case. He was referring to Malachite, honestly a rather despicable woman in his opinion. More than once, Kiro had suggested straight-up assassinating her, and he certainly could pull it off and leave no evidence. The only reason Ozpin didn't allow it was because Malachite had such a power in the city's criminal underworld that if she were to just die right there, it would create a power vacuum that every other criminal would try to get, resulting in street fights and gang wars erupting throughout the city, which would lead to panic, which would lead to an increase in grim activity. But, back to the topic at hand, where exactly do you plan on going once you leave? Ozpin asked. Vale. Oscar answered, surprising Ozpin. Why there, specifically? Beacon was recently attacked. I can only imagine the sheer amount of panic and fear that is still felt there, Ozpin said. Except that the whole kingdom is now apparently grim-free. Emilia said. Ozpin didn't quite respond right away. Like he was taking a few moments to process what he had just heard. I beg your pardon. I know, it sounds unbelievable, but all the major news stations in the kingdom are reporting it. Emilia confirmed as she pulled out her scroll and showed it to the projection in the mirror. She scrolled through various articles, confirming her statements that there hasn't been a single grim sighting since the battle at Beacon. Needless to say, Ozpin was beyond stunned. For one of the few times in his many lifetimes, he was at a loss of words. How? The golden hero, Oscar said, getting Ozpin's attention. People are saying that a warrior clad in golden light repelled the attack at Beacon, and wiped out all the grim from the kingdom of Vale forever. Is there proof of this? Where can I see this, golden hero? Ozpin stuttered. He had a feeling of who this golden hero really was, but he needed to be certain. Here, Oscar pulled out his own scroll, accessed a news article that had several pictures of a humanoid in golden light. They were incredibly hard to make out, but through Oscar's eyes, Ozpin was able to see it. This entity looked just like the images and reports Sonic and his allies showed him of their past adventures when they first met. He knew right away, this was Super Sonic. Then, I believe going to Vale would best work for all of us. Ozpin said, surprising Oscar and Emilia. I've met this golden hero. What? Emilia exclaimed with Oscar's own eyes widening in shock. Though he is not always gold, I have indeed met him. Ozpin explained. He is, not from around here. His power is unlike anything I've seen before. And if what I heard of his exploits are true, he may very well be able to not only stop our merging, but even separate us entirely. As if they weren't surprised enough. Is that possible? Hold on one second. Emilia looked skeptical as she walked to the mirror and pointed to Ozpin's projection. You said you couldn't leave Oscar's body. Yes, I have no control over my reincarnation and the subsequent merging. Ozpin relied. However, the power the golden hero wields is beyond even me. If anyone has the power to separate us, it would be him. And you were planning on moving to Vale anyways, so I believe this would indeed be the best course of action. For us, but what about you? Emilia questioned, still skeptical. Why do you want to go to Vale? Aside from allowing a chance for your nephew to relieve himself of my curse, I have a close friend at Beacon. Professor Glinda Goodwitch. Ozpin explained. She has also met the golden hero. I believe that if we were to meet her, she can get into contact with him and he would be able to help us. Oh, why not Lionheart since you're buddies with him? Emilia questioned. Haven's way closer, right? Yes, but if what you've told me of the situation in Mistral is true, getting into the city would be far more dangerous for both of you. Ozpin explained. Traveling to Vale may take time and be more out of the way, but it's at least safer. Especially if it is indeed free of the grim, as you say. He hesitated in speaking that last part, still finding it hard to believe. He's not wrong, Oscar muttered, surprising his aunt to turn to him. I know, Aunt M, this all sounds crazy, but we were planning to go to Vale anyway, right? And the golden hero is real. You heard him say that he met him. You're trusting the word of a literal ghost. Emilia questioned. I know. Oscar shook his head. But, the golden hero can get that ghost out of me. If there's a chance to do that, shouldn't we take it? Or would you rather just sit and wait for him to eat my soul? Emilia winced at that part. As much as she hated to admit it, she knew Oscar was right. They were planning on going to Vale to begin with. The only other option was to let Ozpin consume her beloved nephew, the only family she had left. It still sounded impossible to believe, but given everything that happened recently, from the Kingdom of Vale being wiped clean of the Grimm to the reincarnated warrior now possessing her nephew, was anything impossible anymore? She turned to Ozpin's projection in the mirror again. You promise that he can get you out of him. As much as I want to say yes, I cannot directly confirm it. However, he quickly spoke when he saw Ilia attempting to protest. I've heard of his exploits. Exploits that includes him battling and defeating gods, and even saving several worlds at once. If that's any indication of what he is capable of, then I believe separating our souls would be a trivial matter. You believe? Ilia raised an eyebrow. It's the best I can give you. Please, Miss Pines. Ozpin pleaded. Her expression wavered as she turned back to her nephew, who looked to her with a pleading expression of his own before she caved. Fine, we leave first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you, both Ozpin and Oscar said simultaneously, surprising them both as well as Ilia. Yeah, can you please not do that? Oscar asked shakily to his new roommate. My apologies, Ozpin said sincerely, secretly hoping this wasn't a sign of their merge. Ilia put her hand on her face and gave a tired sigh. Gods give me strength. And this at the end of part 19 this what if. Hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.